Hello, my pack. It's been a while. I know the nights here have been silent, and the fire has been cold, and I'm so sorry to have left you in that quiet for so long. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been sick. Not just a cold sick. I've been very sick. There was a moment, a long moment, where I wasn't just fighting to get back to this microphone. I was fighting to just stay, to come back to life. It has been the most challenging battle I have ever faced, and it has taken everything. But I am here. I am better. I'm not all the way back, but I am here. And I opened the channel and I looked, and so many of you were still here. You stayed. You waited. I saw the comments, the "Are you okay?" messages. I saw that so many of you didn't unsubscribe. I cannot tell you what that means. From the very deepest, most protected part of my soul, thank you. Thank you for keeping the faith. Thank you for staying. I know some people left. Some of the pack wandered off. The fire went out and they went looking for warmth elsewhere. And I understand. I truly do. But for you, for the ones who stayed, I need your help. I need your help now more than I have ever needed it. Because I've been gone, the world, the algorithm, it has forgotten us. It thinks this pack is gone. We need to send up a signal. We need to howl, and we need that howl to echo. If you are here, if you are one of the ones who waited, please help me. Like this video. It tells the world we are alive. Share this video. Be the voice that carries over the mountain. And if you are listening, if you are new, or if you are one of those who left and are just checking back, please subscribe. Help me send a signal flare so bright that every single wolf who wandered off can see it. Let's call them home. Let's show them the fire is lit again. I am so grateful to be back. And I have brought you a story, one that has been waiting, one that I think I needed to go through my own battle to be able to tell. It's a story about a bond that refused to break, a curse that demanded an ending, and a mate who refused to obey. Tonight, my pack, we are back. And this is the Alpha's cursed rejection. The cold wasn't in the air. The air in the great hall of the Eclipse Pack was thick, suffocating, and hot with the body heat of 1,000 wolves crammed shoulder to shoulder, all waiting for the kill. No, the cold was in the silence. It was the kind of silence that has a weight, the kind that presses down on your shoulders, steals the air from your lungs, and freezes the blood in your veins. It was a hungry, hateful, righteous silence, and all of it, every ounce of it, was aimed at the lone figure standing on the raised marble platform. Her name was Rowena Vance, and she was standing on the rejection dais. This wasn't a trial. Trials implied a chance of innocence. This was a sentence, a public execution of the soul before the literal execution of the body. She stood barefoot, and the ancient marble was so cold it felt like it was actively sucking the life up through her feet. It was a slick, black marble, polished smooth by the tears and humiliation of generations of wolves deemed unworthy. But Rowena wasn't just unworthy. She was a witch, a pariah, the Vance abomination. She had been called those names her entire life, ever since she was found a 22-year-old ward in a rival pack, a living, breathing reminder of a bloodline that should have been exterminated generations ago. Her family practiced forbidden magic. Her family was executed for it. And she, the last drop of that unstable blood, was their living sin. And now, her magic was betraying her. You see, her power, this thing they called shadow weaving, it fed on fear. And in this hall, fear was a feast. It was a banquet. Her own terror, her own humiliation was a siren call. The shadows in the high raftered ceiling, the ones clinging to the stone pillars, the ones lurking beneath the feet of the assembled pack, they weren't staying still. They were leaking from her, a cold, slick second skin. They slithered over the pristine black marble of the dais, tendrils of inky darkness that made the torchlight flicker and dim. They weren't aggressive, not yet, but they were alive, reacting to the sheer, overwhelming pressure of 1,000 wolves staring, judging, hating. The pack members recoiled. They snarled, low and deep in their chests. They saw the shadows not as a symptom of her terror, but as proof of her corruption. "Witch," someone whispered, and the word was picked up like a stone thrown from 100 mouths at once. Rowena squeezed her eyes shut, trying to pull the shadows back, trying to be small, to be nothing. But they wouldn't obey. They were her only defense, and they were the very thing that was damning her. Her distinctive trait, the crescent-shaped scar on her wrist, throbbed with a cold, sickly light, a beacon in the dark she was creating. And then there was him. He stood opposite her, Lord Kaelen Marr, Alpha Lord of the Eclipse Pack, the most powerful alpha in the territories, the governor of unstable magic, and in the Moon Goddess's cruelest, most twisted joke, her fated mate. He was everything she was not. He was power. He was authority. He was golden and light and terrible. The air around him seemed to shimmer, charged with the volatile energy of his own curse. He was a truth eater, a living void who could absorb and neutralize the magic of others. And he was beautiful. It was a terrible, sharp-edged beauty, the kind you saw in a perfectly forged blade or a winter storm. He was tall and broad, and his face was a mask of perfect stoic control. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. He just watched her. Rowena's gaze locked on the only part of him that ever betrayed emotion. His hands. His hands were covered in a delicate, intricate web of faint, silver-white lines, scars from the volatile magic he had absorbed, the memories he had eaten to keep his pack safe. And right now, those scarred hands, resting at his sides, were clenched into fists so tight his knuckles were white. The irony was so bitter, so acidic, it could have choked her. "He is my mate," the thought ripped through her, a desperate, childish wail beneath the terror. The one person in this world, the only person, created just for me, the one who should have saved me. Her eyes lifted, meeting his across the expanse of marble. His were the color of a winter sky, gray and cold and impossibly distant. Instead, her soul whispered, "He will be the one to destroy me." The ticking clock wasn't just in her head. It was in the sky. Through the high, arched windows of the Great Hall, the moon was rising. Not just any moon, the blood moon. It hung low and heavy, a sick, bloody smear against the velvet sky, and it was a promise. It was the moon that would make her unstable magic fully, irrevocably manifest. It was the moon that would prove to everyone that she was a threat. It was her deadline. And Kaelen's. The biting smell of ozone, the smell of raw, crackling magic, and sharp pine from the pack warriors filled her lungs. She could feel the suffocating silence reach its peak. It stretched and stretched and stretched until it was a physical thing, a wire pulled so taut it had to snap. And then he spoke. Kaelen Marr opened his mouth. His voice wasn't a shout. It was a low, controlled rumble that filled the hall, a sound that vibrated in the stone, in her bones. It was the voice that had haunted her dreams since the moment she first saw him, the voice she had desperately hoped would say, "She is mine. She is protected. He began, and the single word slammed into her, stealing her breath. Alpha Lord Kaelen Marr, he continued, his title a shield, a declaration of what he was, an alpha, a lord, not a mate. Rowena's heart was hammering, so hard it was a physical pain in her chest. No, please, don't do this. She was begging him, screaming it in her mind. Look at me, see me, Kaelen, please. His gray eyes were locked on hers. They were empty, a void. Reject Rowena Vance. The words hit her. They weren't just words, they were a physical blow. She staggered, a small, choked sound ripping from her throat, the sound of her soul tearing in two. The pack gasped, a single, collective intake of breath, and then the whispers, the oohs of pity, the snickers of triumph, the "it's done," the witch is broken. Rowena waited for the pain, the legendary, agonizing snap of the mate bond shattering, the feeling of her other half being ripped away. She braced for the emptiness, the void that all the stories warned her about. But it didn't come. For one agonizing, suspended heartbeat, nothing happened. The silence was back, but now it was confused. Kaelen's face, that perfect mask, broke, just for a fraction of a second. His eyes widened, the control snapped. She saw a flash of raw, naked terror. And then the world exploded. It wasn't a sound, it was a feeling, a violent physical snap, like a universe being born and dying in the same instant. A shockwave of pure, raw magic erupted from her chest, slamming into him. Rowena screamed as a pain unlike anything she had ever known ripped through her. It wasn't the pain of a bond breaking, it was the pain of a bond failing. A visible tether, a violent, swirling rope of energy erupted from her, connecting to him. It wasn't the gentle, golden thread of a mate bond. Oh no, this was a monster. It was her magic. A thick, roiling cable of pure black shadow shot through with her fear and her pain, and it was his magic. A crackling, razor-sharp line of silver-white light, the energy of his own soul, his own curse. The two forces smashed together, twining, binding, fusing. The black shadow and the silver light lashed together, forming a visible chain that pulsed with grotesque, unstable power. It thrummed in the air, yanking them both forward, anchoring them. The crowd screamed. They fell back, trampling each other in their haste to get away from the unholy magic. "What is this?" Kaelen's beta roared. "What's she done?" But Kaelen couldn't answer. He was staring at the chain, his face pale, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked at the impossible, magical tether that now bound him to the one person in the world he was oathed to kill. The rejection had failed. It had failed, and in its place it had forged something new, something terrible. Rowena stood there, shaking, tears streaming down her face, her shadows now swirling around her like a protective storm. She was still connected to him, but it wasn't a bond. It wasn't a bond of love. It was a trap. And the magic? The magic was now trapping them both. Subscribe to Wolfveil Tales, because sometimes a rejection isn't an ending. It's a chain. Chaos. Pure, undiluted chaos erupted where silence had just been king. The 1,000 wolves of the Eclipse Pack, so stoic and righteous moments before, were now a scrambling, screaming mass. They shoved, they climbed over one another, they clawed at the great wooden doors, desperate to escape the thing that had just happened. The air, once thick with body heat, was now Arctic cold, snapped with the biting metallic tang of raw ozone and an even stranger, deeper smell. The smell of ancient dust and a void. The smell of Kaelen's power. But Rowena barely saw them. She barely heard their screams. All of her senses, all of her being was focused on two things. The first was the man who had just tried to destroy her. Kaelen Marr was no longer the picture of stoic, controlled power. His mask had not just cracked, it had shattered. His broad chest was heaving, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. His perfectly sculpted face was pale, a stark, waxy white beneath his golden skin. And his eyes, those winter gray eyes, were no longer empty. They were wide and fixed, not on her, not on her face, but on the thing that bound them. The second was the pain. It was nothing like the stories. They said a rejection was a sharp, tearing agony that left an emptiness. This was not emptiness. This was a presence. It was a violation. The magical tether, that unholy fusion of her black swirling shadows and his silver-white light, was not just visible, it was physical. It throbbed. It pulsed with a sick, violent rhythm, an anti-heartbeat that slammed against her own. And it pulled. She felt a deep, agonizing craving in her chest, a gravitational force that demanded she move closer to him. Her shadows, her wild, unstable magic that had been lashing out in fear, were no longer afraid. They were hungry. They strained toward him, toward the silver-white scars on his hands, toward the void he represented. Her magic, the magic of fear and darkness, wanted to be eaten. It wanted to dive into that void, to be consumed by the only other power in the world that could possibly understand it. And she could feel his side of it too. Through that impossible chain, she felt a reflection of her own hunger. But his was different. It was a cold, desperate, aching need. His power, his truth eater curse, was designed to neutralize, to absorb, to cleanse. And her magic was the most unstable, most forbidden, most potent poison it had ever encountered. She could feel his power aching to drain her dry, to absorb her shadows, her fear, her memories, her very self, and leave nothing behind. They were two black holes, suddenly locked in a death spiral, and the chain was the event horizon from which neither could escape. "My lord!" a voice bellowed, cutting through the panic. Kaelen's beta, a massive wolf of a man named Marcus, ripped his sword from its sheath. The sound of steel scraping leather was deafening in the sudden lull. He and a dozen of the Alpha's personal guard, the Eclipse Guard, formed a half circle, their swords pointed not at the panicked crowd, but at her. "My lord, the witch has attacked you!" Marcus roared, his eyes wide with terror and righteous fury. "She has bound you! Give the order and we will sever the link! And her head!" The threat was real. It was immediate. Rowena's shadows coiled, rising up around her like a living shield, her eyes now solid, starless black, fixed on the men who were about to kill her. She could fight. Her power, amplified by the blood moon and the raw emotion of the failed rejection, was singing in her veins. She could unleash a wave of terror that would send them all to their knees, clutching their heads, screaming at the phantoms of their own inner darkness. But Kaelen moved. It was one step, a single sharp, involuntary jerk, and the chain yanked her. She stumbled forward, pulled off the dais by her own soul, her bare feet slapping against the cold marble floor. The pull was agonizing, a hook in her sternum. He flinched, his hand flying to his own chest as if he'd been struck. He had felt it too. He lifted his head, and his gaze finally met hers. And in that moment, Rowena Vance understood what true terror looked like. It wasn't the fear of the pack scrambling at the doors. It wasn't the fearful hatred of Marcus and his guards. The terror on Kaelen Marr's face was deeper. It was older. It was the hopeless, bone-deep certainty of a man who had just seen the end of the world.
He wasn't looking at a witch who had attacked him. He was looking at his mate, who he had failed to save. His mind was reeling, a cacophony of panic that his stoic mask could no longer hide. It didn't work. Oh, goddess, it didn't work. The rejection was supposed to sever it. It was supposed to cut the link. The executioner's oath, an ancient, unbreakable blood oath bound to his very soul, his very lineage, had activated the instant the moon goddess had whispered her name in his mind. Rowena Vance, the last of the Shadow Weavers, your mate. A mate he was bound by ancient law, by his own magic, to execute. The oath was absolute. The last Vance must die by the hand of the last Marr before the blood moon sets, or the magic of the oath, vengeful and absolute, would turn inward and destroy them both. It would rip their souls from their bodies, a paradox of magic that would leave nothing but dust. He had 3 days. The rejection, that brutal, public, soul-tearing rejection, it had been his one and only desperate gamble. He had prayed that by severing the fated mate bond, he could create a loophole, that she would just be another rogue, another witch, and he could find some other way, that the goddess's magic would be weaker than his ancestors' curse. He had prayed, and the goddess had laughed. The mate bond had refused to break. It was stronger than the rejection. It was stronger than his will. And now, in its defiance, it had done the one thing he had never anticipated. It had fused with the oath. The rejection had failed, and in doing so, it had locked the prophecy in. It had sealed their fates together. He didn't just have to kill a witch. He had to kill his mate, his fated, bonded mate, who was now visibly, magically, physically chained to his very soul. He had 3 days to kill her, or the chain would kill them both. "My lord," Marcus shouted again, taking a step toward Rowena, "stand down." The words were not a shout. They were a snarl, ripped from the very depths of Kaelen's being. The sound was so saturated with raw primal alpha command that Marcus froze mid-stride, his sword dipping. The guards flinched, their knees buckling under the weight of his power. Kaelen's eyes, filled with that cold, desperate terror, were still locked on Rowena. He saw her shadows coiling, felt her fear, her pain, her defiance. And he knew in that moment he had to get her out of this room, away from his pack, away from his duty. He had to hide her, even from himself, while he tried to find a way to break a curse that had stood for 1,000 years. He took a slow, deliberate breath. He rebuilt his mask, piece by painful piece, but it was a shoddy construction now. The terror was still leaking from his eyes. He turned his head, just slightly, toward his beta. "She is not a witch." The words dropped into the hall like a bomb. The remaining pack members gasped. Marcus's jaw went slack. "But my lord, the magic, the chain." "She is a prisoner," Kaelen bit out, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "A prisoner of the oath, a prisoner of his bloodline, a prisoner of him. She is now my burden, mine alone." He looked back at Rowena. The chain pulsed between them, a mockery of their fate. He had to get her somewhere safe, somewhere he could control this, somewhere he could think. Not the dungeons. The dungeons were for enemies. She wasn't his enemy. She was his... He didn't know what she was. Take her to the Umbra Tower. Another shockwave of whispers. The Umbra Tower. Not the dungeons, not the executioner's block. The Umbra Tower was the oldest part of the castle, a place of forbidden lore, a library of the very unstable magic his pack was sworn to govern. It was a prison, yes, but it was a prison of secrets, a place of containment, not punishment. "Now!" Kaelen commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. The guards looked at each other, their fear of her warring with their obedience to him. They moved, slowly, cautiously, their swords still out but pointed at the floor. They fanned out, creating a circle around her, their eyes flicking back and forth between her and the pulsating, shadowy chain. Rowena's world was spinning,
Her heart was a frantic, broken bird in her chest. Prisoner? Umbra Tower? The words meant nothing. All she understood was the look in his eyes. It wasn't hatred. It wasn't disgust. It was desperation. It was the same hollow, cornered animal look she saw in her own reflection every single morning. This wasn't a tyrant. This was a man as trapped as she was. The guards were closing in. The points of their spears were glinting in the dimming torchlight. She had a choice. She could fight. She could unleash hell. She could prove them all right. She could be the monster they all believed she was. She could rip them apart with their own inner darkness and bathe in their fear. She would die, yes. The guards would eventually cut her down, but she would die a storm. Or she could go. She could walk into that prison and try to understand why. Why a rejection had failed for the first time in history. Why the most powerful alpha in the territories looked like a man on a countdown. Why, when he looked at her, she felt the echo of her own broken soul. She wanted to know. That tiny, flickering ember of curiosity, of need, was suddenly stronger than her fear. It was stronger than her rage. She let her shadows recede. Just a little. They didn't disappear, but they pulled back from their defensive snake-like coil, sinking back until they were just a swirling, inky mist around her feet. Her solid black eyes faded, the pupils returning, dilated and dark, fixed on Kaelen. It was a surrender. And it was a question. A guard, braver than the rest, lunged, grabbing her arm. His grip was brutal, his fingers digging into her skin like claws. Rowena didn't flinch. She didn't fight. She just let them take her. Two guards grabbed her arms, hauling her forward, dragging her out of the great hall, away from the scene of her greatest humiliation. They were rough, pulling her, but she moved with them, her bare feet stumbling, almost slipping on the marble. The whole way, she kept her head turned, her eyes locked on him, and Kaelen Marr didn't look away.
He stood frozen, a statue of tormented power, and watched her be dragged from the room. He watched as the shadowy chain, his new and terrible burden, stretched taut between them, growing thinner and more ethereal the farther she went, but never, ever breaking. The last thing Rowena saw before the great doors slammed shut, plunging the corridor into darkness, was the look on his face. It wasn't the look of a judge, or an alpha, or a mate. It was the look of a man who had just 3 days to figure out how to kill the only thing in the world he was fated to love, before the very magic of their bond killed them both. The heavy oaken door of the corridor boomed shut, the sound echoing like a death knell. Rowena was left in the sudden, echoing silence of the stone hallway, flanked by 2 guards who were practically vibrating with fear and disgust. One of them still had his hand clamped on her arm, his grip so tight she could feel his pulse hammering against her skin. "Move, witch," he snarled, giving her a shove that sent her stumbling forward. The walk to the Umbra Tower was not long, but it felt like an eternity. They didn't take her through the main halls, with their rich tapestries and warm fires. They took her through the other parts of the castle, the service tunnels, the cold stone arteries of the fortress that smelled of damp earth, old iron, and something else, a faint, lingering scent of decay and forgotten magic. There were no torches here. The only light came from high, arrow-slit windows that were so narrow they seemed to mock her with tiny, slivered glimpses of the blood moon hanging in the sky. Its red light painted a bloody, intermittent stripe on the stone floor, a grim path for them to follow. Her shadows, which had receded in the great hall, began to creep back out. The fear in this place was old. It was a layered, sedimentary fear, built up over centuries. The fear of servants, of prisoners, of our own ancestors. Her shadows loved it. They twined around her ankles, a comforting, cold caress, and made the guards jumpy. "Keep your filth to yourself," the guard on her right hissed, his voice unsteady. He was trying to sound menacing, but his own fear was an acrid, sweaty stench in the air, a feast for her powers. Rowena didn't respond. She was too busy processing. Her mind was a whirlwind, replaying the scene in the hall, over and remote. The rejection, the pain, the chain. The look in Kaelen's eyes. He's terrified. That one simple fact was a rock in the ocean of her confusion. He hadn't rejected her out of simple disgust. Oh, he was disgusted, she was sure of that, but the terror? That was new. That was a variable she hadn't accounted for. He wasn't a tyrant enjoying his power. He was a man fighting a battle she couldn't see. He is not a witch. He is a prisoner. Why had he said that? He had separated her from her magic. He had called her a prisoner. A prisoner of what? Of him? Of her bloodline? The words echoed in her mind, a puzzle she was missing the pieces to. And the Umbra Tower. She'd heard the whispers. Every pack had its dark legends, and the Umbra Tower was the Eclipse Pack's boogeyman. It wasn't the dungeon where they broke bodies. It was the place where they studied things, where they broke minds. They said it was a library of every dark and forbidden text, a museum of cursed artifacts, a place where unstable magic was analyzed, cataloged, and neutralized. A cold dread, sharper than her humiliation, began to settle in. This was worse than a simple execution. He wasn't just going to kill her. He was going to study her first. He was going to take her apart, piece by magical piece, to understand how the chain worked before he finally, mercifully, ended her. The thought made her stumble, her knee hitting the rough stone. "Keep moving," the guard growled, yanking her up so hard her shoulder socket screamed. She bit back a cry, her own anger flaring. The shadows around her feet hissed, lashing out like whips, and the guard screamed, leaping back as if he'd been burned. The tendril of pure darkness had brushed his boot, and in that instant she had seen it, a flash of his inner darkness, a memory of him stealing food from the kitchens, a petty, pathetic little secret. He looked at her, his face pale and clammy. She saw. The other guard raised his spear, his hand shaking. "Get back, witch! Don't do that!" Rowena stared at them, breathing heavily. She could fight right here. They were terrified of her. She could probably take them both. But what then? Run? Where? She was in the heart of the Eclipse Pack's fortress, a place no one had ever escaped from. And even if she did, that chain was still there. She could feel it, a faint, insistent pull in her chest, a hum in her blood, thrumming in the direction of the great hall, in the direction of him. There was no running, not from this. She straightened up, her chin high, her solid black eyes daring them to touch her again. "I'm walking," she said, her voice a low, rough rasp. They had reached a dead end, a solid wall of darker, older stone, but as they approached, one of the guards pressed a hidden signal, and a section of the wall groaned, grinding open to reveal a narrow spiral staircase lit by a single guttering torch. The air that puffed out from the opening was cold and smelled of dust, old parchment, and something else. A faint, sweet smell like dried herbs and something electric. "In," the guard commanded, gesturing with his spear. Rowena looked into the darkness. This was it. The choice point. Fight and die a meaningless death in a dark corridor? Or walk into the lion's den, into the very heart of her new prison, and try to find the answers that might, just might, keep her alive. She took a breath, gathered the tattered shreds of her dignity, and stepped into the Umbra Tower. The staircase was a long, winding descent into the earth. With every step, the faint hum in her blood grew stronger. The Umbra Tower wasn't a tower. It was a root, a foundation. It was built down, not up. After what felt like 100 steps, they emerged into a vast circular room that stole her breath. It was a library, but it was unlike any library she could have imagined. The walls were lined, floored to ceiling, with ancient leather-bound books, scrolls, and crystal jars containing swirling, nebulous mists. The air was filled with floating, glowing runes that drifted like lazy fireflies, casting a soft blue-green light. In the center of the room, a massive, ancient garneled tree grew, its branches bare of leaves.
but pulsing with a faint silver light. It seemed to be the source of the room's power. It was beautiful, and it was terrifying. It was a prison made of knowledge. "In the cell," the guard said. There was no cell, not a traditional one. In a small alcove carved out of the far wall was a simple cot and a small desk. The bars were not iron. They were a shimmering golden white curtain of energy that pulsed with a steady, rhythmic light. It was a cage made of magic. She walked toward it, and as she passed, the magical curtain dissolved, letting her enter. The moment she was inside, it shimmered back into existence behind her, trapping her. The two guards let out a collective sigh of relief. "The Alpha Lord will be down to speak with you," the first guard said, his bravado returning now that she was safely caged. "Don't try anything. That cage is pure light magic. It'll burn your shadows to ash if you even think about touching it."
He and his partner backed away, their eyes never leaving her, and then they were gone, their footsteps echoing up the spiral staircase. The heavy stone door groaned shut, and a final heavy thud of a locking bar echoed down into the chamber. And then she was alone. Silence. But it was a different kind of silence than the Great Hall. This silence was ancient. It was full. It was the silence of a million unspoken words, of centuries of secrets, all bound in the books around her. Rowena sagged, her knees finally giving way. She collapsed onto the hard, thin cot, the adrenaline of the last hour draining away, leaving her hollow and shaking. She had been rejected, she had been chained, she had been imprisoned. She brought a trembling hand up to her chest. She could still feel it, the pull. The chain was still there, a spectral, invisible link that thrummed with his power and her pain. She thought of his face, the terror, the desperation. "He's desperate to find a way out," a small voice whispered in her mind. "He doesn't want to kill me, not like this." The rejection, the public humiliation, it hadn't been an act of cruelty, it had been an act of desperation. He was trying to unfate us. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. He wasn't trying to break her, he was trying to save her from himself. The executioner's oath. The words dropped into her mind, a memory from a story her grandmother had told her, a story she had thought was just a dark fairy tale. A curse laid on the Marr line, binding them to hunt the Vance line, a blood oath that could not be broken. "He is my fated mate and my prophesied executioner. The blood moon, the trigger, the clock. He has exactly 3 days, until the moon sets, to kill me, or the magic of the oath will kill both of them." The puzzle pieces snapped into place, and the picture they formed was so horrifying, so utterly, tragically cruel, that a sob ripped itself from her throat. He hadn't been rejecting a witch he found disgusting. He had been rejecting his mate in a desperate last-ditch attempt to free himself from an oath that demanded he murder her. And it had backfired. The goddess's magic, the mate bond, had been stronger. It had refused to break. And now the rejection and the oath were both active, a magical paradox, a tug-of-war with their souls as the rope. She wasn't just his prisoner, she was his living, breathing deadline. She looked around the vast, silent library, at the floating runes and the glowing tree. This wasn't a prison to punish her. This was a prison to hide her. He hadn't brought her here to study her. He had brought her here to the one place in his entire fortress dedicated to solving magical problems, to try and find a way to save her, to find a way to break a 1,000-year-old curse in 3 days. A new kind of hope, a terrible, fragile, and dangerous hope, began to bloom in her chest right next to the agonizing pull of the chain. He didn't want to kill her. He was desperate to find a way out. The thought was a small, flickering candle in the overwhelming darkness. And then she heard it.
the sound of the heavy stone door groaning open at the top of the stairs, the sound of a single set of footsteps, heavy, measured, and agonizingly familiar. He was coming. Rowena scrambled to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribs. She backed away until her back hit the cold stone of the alcove. The golden, shimmering bars of light magic were the only thing separating her from the man who had just tried to reject her and who was now her only and most terrifying hope. He was coming. The sound of his boots on the spiral staircase was not the sound of an Alpha Lord coming to pass judgment. It was not the sound of an executioner coming to sharpen his blade. It was a heavy, measured, exhausted sound. The sound of a man walking on a treadmill of his own history, a man forced to take steps he did not want to take. Thud, thud, thud. Each footfall was a hammer blow against the fragile silence of the Umbra Tower, and each was a hammer blow against Rowena's heart. She scrambled back, pressing herself against the cold carved stone of the alcove. Her cage, the golden shimmering bars of light magic, were the only thing separating her from him, and she didn't know if they were meant to keep him out or her in. Her shadows, her only defense, which had been a comforting cold mist at her feet, now recoiled. They hissed and pulled back deep inside her, terrified, not of the man, but of the power he carried. His truth-eater curse, his void, was a natural predator to her shadow magic. To her shadows, he was a walking, breathing black hole. The footsteps stopped. He emerged from the staircase into the vast circular room, and the drifting, glowing runes of the library seemed to dim as he passed, as if the very magic of the place was afraid of him. And Rowena's breath caught in her throat. This was not the man from the Rejection dais. The man on the dais was cold, pristine, and terrible in his control. This man was a wreck. His perfect golden blonde tunic was unlaced at the throat. His golden blonde hair, which was usually tied back with perfect, severe precision, was loose, falling in strands around his face, damp with sweat. And his mask, his perfect, stoic mask of control, was gone. In its place was a bone-deep weariness, a raw, tormented exhaustion that made him look 10 years older. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week, and Rowena realized, with a jolt, that he probably hadn't, not since the goddess had whispered her name. He didn't look at her, not at first. His gaze was fixed on the ancient, glowing tree in the center of the room, as if drawing strength from it. His silver-scarred hands were clenched at his sides, the only part of him that still seemed to vibrate with that lethal, controlled energy. And the chain, oh, the chain. It wasn't visible, not like it had been in the hall, but it was there. The moment he stepped into the room, the pull in Rowena's chest became a physical, agonizing yearning. It was a hook in her sternum, yanking her soul toward his. Her shadows screamed inside her, wanting to flee, but the mate bond, that twisted, broken, failed mate bond, wanted to run to him. She could feel his side of it too, a cold, aching hunger, a void that wanted to feed. His power was drawn to her shadows, craving them, needing to consume them. It was a violation. It was the most intimate, agonizing, and terrifying feeling she had ever experienced. He finally turned, his winter gray eyes locking on her, and the world stopped. There was no hatred. There was no disgust. There was nothing. No, not nothing. Worse. There was a cold, clinical, desperate assessment. He was a scholar looking at an impossible equation, a man looking at a bomb he had 3 days to defuse, with no idea which wire to cut. He took a step toward her cage. Rowena flinched, pressing herself so hard against the stone that her bones ached. He stopped, 10 feet away, just outside the soft golden glow of the light magic. The silence stretched, thick and heavy with their shared, unspoken agony.
The only sound was the faint, electric hum of the cage and the quiet, drifting hiss of the floating runes. He finally spoke. His voice was not the commanding rumble from the hall. It was low, raw rasp. It was the voice of a man who had been gargling glass. He said, "The cage will hold." His words dropped into the silence, devoid of all emotion. "It is pure light magic, forged by the first Marr." His eyes flicked to her, then away, as if it pained him to look at her. Your magic," he said the word like a curse, "will be burned to ash." He paused, and his next words were heavy, each one a stone. And I will feel it." Rowena's breath hitched. Of course, the chain. If the cage burned her, he would feel the echo of her pain, a new, exquisite torture he had designed, perhaps unintentionally. He looked around the vast library, his gaze distant, lost. You are safer here than anywhere in this fortress. The pack will not look for you here. My guards will not find you." He was breathing heavily, as if the air in the room was too thick for his lungs. "You are safer here," he repeated, his voice dropping to a whisper, and his eyes met hers again, filled with a torment that struck her to the core. "Especially from me." And with that, he turned. He didn't offer a single word of explanation. He didn't comfort her. He didn't threaten her. He just gave up. He started walking back to the spiral staircase, his shoulders slumped. He was leaving. He was just leaving her here. Why? The word was ripped from her throat. It wasn't a shout. It was a pathetic, broken, childish whisper. It was the voice of the pariah, the ward, the girl who was always left behind. He stopped there, his back to her. He didn't turn around, but she saw his silver-scarred hands clench at his sides. "Why?" she asked again, her voice stronger this time, fueled by a sudden desperate rage. She was crying now, tears of humiliation and confusion and rage streaming down her face. "Why drag this out, Kaelen? What more do you want from me?" He stood there, a carved stone statue of a man, his back to her, for so long that she thought he would not answer. The silence was a new kind of torture. When he finally spoke, his voice was so low, so dead, it was barely a sound. "Because the oath requires a ritual."
It was a lie. She could feel it. A half-truth. A deflection. "It cannot be simple," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "Do not call out. Do not try to escape. Every word you read in here," his head gestured to the library, "is a lie or a curse. Do not touch anything." And then he was gone. He climbed the stairs, each thud of his boot a nail in the coffin of her hope. The heavy stone door groaned and then boomed shut, the sound of the locking bar a final, definitive end. She was alone, utterly, completely alone, in a cage, in a tomb of forbidden knowledge, chained to a man who was as much a prisoner as she was. Rowena's legs gave out. She didn't collapse onto the cot. She slid down the cold, hard stone of the alcove wall, her body shaking with silent, racking sobs. The tears were hot, and they felt like acid on her skin. It was the hopelessness that was so crushing, the utter, devastating lack of a future. She had 3 days. 3 days until the blood moon set. 3 days until the man who was her fated mate and her executioner came back to perform his ritual. She cried until her throat was raw, until her eyes were swollen, until she had nothing left. She cried for the little girl who was found, an orphan, and raised as a sin. She cried for the young woman who had dared, for one stupid, glorious second, to hope when she first heard the name Kaelen Marr. And she cried for the witch who was now going to die, not even knowing why. Hours passed, or maybe it was just minutes. Time had no meaning in this place of floating magical runes and no sun. The sobs finally subsided, leaving her hollowed out, empty, and cold. And then she felt it. Her shadows. They had been hiding, terrified of Kaelen's presence, but now, in the silence, in her emptiness, they began to creep back out. They were not the wild, lashing shadows of the great hall. They were not the recoiling, terrified shadows of his arrival. These shadows were gentle. They were sad. They uncoiled from her center, slow, thin, inky tendrils, and they didn't explore the room. They moved toward her. They were a reflection of her own soul, her own inner darkness. They crept up her arms, over her shoulders, and for the first time in her life, they felt comforting. They were a cold, soft blanket against the harsh reality of her prison. She sat there, wrapped in her own magic, in her own sorrow. And then, one of the tendrils changed. It was a thin, probing shadow, and it had been tracing the edges of her cell, the alcove she was in. It had been tracing the small, simple wooden desk that had been carved into the stone, and it stopped. It wasn't a reaction of fear, it was a reaction of curiosity. Rowena lifted her head, her breath catching. Her shadows, her magic was drawn to something. The desk was simple, ancient, carved from the same light-pulsing wood as the great tree. It had one single, small drawer with an old iron keyhole. He said not to touch anything, but her shadows were alive. They were her, and they were convinced that this was important. A thin, precise tendril of darkness, no thicker than a thread, separated from the mist around her. It was not a physical thing. It was a whisper of her power. It moved not at the drawer, but toward it. It hovered over the iron lock, and it listened. Her power, the power to see inner darkness, to feel fear, it wasn't just for people. It was for objects, for the residue they held. And this lock was saturated in emotion. It was drenched in Kaelen's pain, in his frustration, in his desperation. It was a familiar, echoing torment, the same feelings she had just felt in him. The shadow tendril, drawn to that familiar agony, slipped through the keyhole. It wasn't picking the lock, it was harmonizing with it. It was a question, a whisper of shared darkness. I see your pain. I am like you. There was a faint, metallic click. The lock, sealed by his own pained, desperate magic, had recognized her magic as akin. It had opened. Rowena's heart was hammering so hard it felt like it would break her ribs. This was it. This was the something. He had hidden this. This was the one thing he hadn't wanted her to see. Her hands were shaking. She reached out and pulled the small, wooden drawer. It slid open with a soft, smooth shush. It was empty. For a second, her hope collapsed. Of course it was empty. But no, it wasn't. In the far back, tucked in the shadows, was one single, leather-bound book. It was not one of the ancient, dusty tomes that lined the library. This book was worn. The dark leather was supple, the corners dented, and on the cover, almost burned into the hide from the sheer force of the grip that had held it, was the faint, white, silver-scarred outline of a hand. His hand. With a trembling, reverent hand, Rowena lifted the book. It was heavy, not with weight, but with secrets. This was his journal. She opened it. The pages were thick, creamy cotton, not parchment, and the handwriting, it was sharp, angular, and precise. the handwriting of a man who measured his every breath. At first, she turned to the first page. Entry, 1 year ago. I have been Elfo Lord for 3 years. I have eaten the magic of 37 unstable rogues. The territories are quiet. My pack is safe. And I no longer remember my mother's face. I know I had one. I have a memory of being sad at her funeral, but the image of her, it's gone, eaten. A cost, a price for neutralizing a fire weaver's rage. Was it worth it? The pack is safe. That is the only answer. Rowena's hand flew to her mouth, a gasp stifled in her throat. He doesn't just eat magic, he eats his own memories. He eats himself. Her shadows, which had been so calm, so comforting, now began to swirl again, this time not with fear, but with a cold, rising pity that was almost as painful as the rejection. She flipped a few pages, her fingers clumsy. The handwriting was becoming less precise. The angular letters were starting to slant.
6 months ago. I am losing time. It is happening more frequently. I ate the magic of a rogue stormcaller today. A young man, terrified of his own power. He was lashing out, creating tornadoes in the lowlands. I took it. I absorbed the storm. The pack is safe. He is neutralized. He is blank. And I came back to myself 6 hours later. I was in the left wing, in a room I do not use. I do not remember the battle. I do not remember the storm. I do not remember his name. I have a new scar, a silver-white line on my thumb. I do not know what memory it cost me. I am afraid. But an alpha cannot be afraid. A Marr cannot be afraid. Rowena was weeping. Silent tears this time. Not for herself, for him. For this man, this void who was systematically deleting himself to keep others safe. Entry, 1 month ago. The burden of the Marr line is absolute. My father warned me. His father warned him. We are not alphas. We are custodians. We are janitors. We are voids. We cleanse the world of unstable magic, and in return, the world is cleansed of us. We forget. We become hollow. We are the price. This is the truth. This is the curse of the truth eater. We eat the truth, and then we forget it. Her shadows were no longer swirling. They were coiling. They crept up from her ankles onto the cot and wrapped around her shoulders, a protective, possessive embrace. As if they, her own unstable magic, were trying to comfort her for his pain. She turned the page. The handwriting exploded. It was a frantic, desperate, violent scrawl. The ink splattered, the nib of the pen having torn the page. Entry, 1 week ago. It has happened. The lie I have lived. The one thing I have dreaded since my first memory was eaten. The blood moon rises, and the goddess has mocked me. She has laughed at my family's sacrifice. She has named my executioner's target. Vance. The last Vance. Rowena's heart stopped. She couldn't breathe. Entry continues. The seers confirmed it. The ward. The pariah. The girl Valerius has kept hidden like a dirty secret. She is... The pen had pressed so hard here. It had ripped a hole in the page. She is my mate. Rowena dropped the book. It hit the stone floor with a slap that echoed in the vast, silent chamber. No, no, no. It was all there. All of it. Her rejection, her humiliation, the pain. It wasn't an attack. It was a shield. A shield that had failed. Her shaking, palsied hand reached down and picked up the journal. She had to know the rest. She had to. Entry, 4 days ago. The oath is absolute. It is unbreakable. My ancestor, Kaelen Marr, in his arrogance, in his fear of the Vance's power, bound our bloodline to it. I found the original text. The shadow of the Vance will never again fall upon this world. The light of the Marr will cleanse it. By blood, by oath, by the setting of the blood moon, the Marr line will execute the last Vance, or the goddess's own fated magic will be turned against itself, and both lines will be erased. He thought he was saving the world, the arrogant, sanctimonious, terrified fool. He didn't just doom her line, he doomed his. He doomed me. Rowena's breath hitched. His ancestor. He created it. This isn't just a curse. This is a blood feud. This is a sin, and Kaelen is paying for it. He's bound by his own family's ancient crime. She flipped to the last entry. The ink was barely dry. It was a desperate, ragged scrawl, the lines uneven, as if his hand was shaking so badly he could barely write. Entry. Last night. Tomorrow, the rejection ceremony. It is my only chance, my only desperate gamble. The oath is absolute. It is unbreakable. My ancestor, Kaelen Marr, in his arrogance, in his fear of the Vance's power, bound our bloodline to it. I found the original text. The shadow of the Vance will never again fall upon this world. The light of the Marr will cleanse it. By blood, by oath, by the setting of the blood moon, the Marr line will execute the last Vance, or the goddess's own fated magic will be turned against itself, and both lines will be erased. He thought he was saving the world, the arrogant, sanctimonious, terrified fool. He didn't just doom her line, he doomed his. He doomed me. My entry for 4 days ago. The truth of what would become of her was gone. Rowena was crying, her front hand. With a trembling, palsied hand, she reached down and picked up the journal. She had to know the rest. She had to. Entry. Last night. Tomorrow, the rejection ceremony. It is my only chance, my only desperate gamble. The oath is absolute. It is unbreakable. My ancestor Kaelen Marr, in his arrogance, in his fear of the Vance's power, bound our bloodline to it. I found the original text. The shadow of the Vance will never again fall upon this world. The light of the Marr will cleanse it. By blood, by oath, by the setting of the blood moon, the Marr line will execute the last Vance, or the goddess's own fated magic will be turned against itself, and both lines will be erased. He thought he was saving the world, the arrogant, sanctimonious, terrified fool. He didn't just doom her line, he doomed his. He doomed me. Rowena stared at the page. Her shadows were no longer wrapping. They were coiling. He had tried to save me. His rejection, his disgracing, his pain. It saved him, but it completely destroyed her. He did the last most common thing he knew the Alpha could do to save her, but also to hide her. Rowena knew she had to find him. She had to make everything right. She had to make everything right. She turned another page, but the entry was just Marr M's. An M for Marr. An M for Marla. She had to go. She had to help him. She had to know. The battle.
She turned the page, her fingers numb. It wasn't an entry. It was a drawing. A detailed, precise, anatomical sketch of a hand. His hand. The silver-white lines were mapped, traced, like a star chart of his own lost memories. He had been studying them, trying to find a pattern. And next to it, another drawing, a sketch copied from an ancient, crumbling text, a crescent-shaped mark. Rowena's blood turned to ice. She ripped up the sleeve of her own dirt-stained tunic, her heart hammering. She looked at her own wrist, at the pale, silvery, crescent-shaped scar that had throbbed with the cold light her entire life. She held her wrist next to the drawing. It was identical.
Her scar. The one she had been told was a Vance stain, a mark of her unstable blood. It was in his book. Beneath the drawing, one scribbled, desperate, almost illegible word. The prophecy. The true union. The oath breaker. Her mind was racing. She frantically flipped back, her fingers tearing through the pages, looking for the reference, for anything. She found it. A small entry, tucked away, written weeks ago. Entry. I found it. A hidden text. Kaelen Marr's other journal. His confession. He was afraid. He knew, even as he forged the oath, that he was damning his own line. He left a fail-safe. Just in case. A prophecy. Rowena's eyes devoured the words. The oath of Marr shall only be undone when the void and the shadow, the fated executioner and the fated sacrifice join in true union. When the chain of the past is reforged by the hands of the present, the bond is the key. The bond is the solution. It's madness. It's a riddle. It's impossible. It means the only way to break the oath is to complete the bond, to accept her? But the oath, it won't. It can't. Rowena's eyes flew to the last line of the entry. This is a trap. It's a paradox. There is no solution. The rejection is the only way. He doesn't know. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. He doesn't know. He wrote this, he found the solution, but he dismissed it. He thought it was a trap, and then he went to the ceremony to reject me. He doesn't know the rejection failed. He doesn't know he created the very chain of the past the prophecy was talking about. The thud. The sound from the top of the stairs. The heavy, grinding groan of the stone door opening again. Rowena's head snapped up. The journal was still open in her lap. Her heart, which had been breaking for him, was now hammering with a new, wild, terrifying power. Hope. The footsteps were different this time. They were faster, urgent. They were uneven, stumbling. Thud, 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 slip, thud. He burst into the chamber. The man who stumbled into the glowing runes of the library was not the man who had left. His mask wasn't just gone, it had been burned away. He was wild. His chest was heaving, his face ashen, and his gray eyes were wide with a new, fresh terror. The chain, he gasped, the words ripped from his throat. He stumbled, lurching forward, one of his silver-scarred hands clamping over his own chest, right over his heart. He was in pain, a deep, agonizing, physical pain. It's the moon, he choked out, leaning heavily against one of the bookshelves, scattering ancient scrolls. It's stronger. It's pulling. The blood moon was rising higher, and as it did, the power of the oath and the power of the failed bond was increasing. The chain was tightening. And Rowena, she felt it too. A sharp, stabbing pain in her own chest, an echo of his. The chain was hurting them, draining them. He staggered forward, his eyes finding her in the cage. He was lurching toward her, drawn by the same invisible force that was pulling her. And then he saw it. He saw the open journal in her lap. He saw the page, the prophecy, his confession. All the color drained from his face. His blood ran cold. What have you done? He whispered, his voice a broken, hollow thing. Rowena Vance stood up. She stood slowly, her body still aching, her heart still broken,
But she was no longer the cowering, terrified girl he had left. Her shadows were calm. They were not lashing. They were not hiding. They were swirling around her, a gentle, protective mantle. And her eyes? Her eyes were solid, starless black. She was not afraid. Not anymore. She held the journal up, her hand shaking, but not with fear, with rage, with pity, with a terrible, world-shattering clarity. You knew. She whispered, and her voice was no longer her own. It was a layered, echoing sound, the sound of her and her shadows speaking as one. You knew what this was. You don't understand, he gasped, pressing his hand against the bookshelf, trying to hold himself upright, fighting the pull of the chain that was dragging him, inch by inch, toward her cage. I understand, and she cried, and the word was a force, a wave of her own power that slammed into the air. The floating runes flared, and the light magic of her cage flickered. I understand that you were trying to save me. He froze. His tortured, gray eyes snapped to hers. She stepped forward, right to the edge of the golden shimmering bars. She was so close, she could feel the heat radiating off his skin, smell the sharp, metallic scent of his magic. You didn't reject me because you hate me, she accused, her voice low, trembling, and lethally sharp, a blade of her own. She held his gaze, her starless black eyes seeing everything, the lost memories, the hollowed-out soul, the boy who was forced to become a void. You rejected me because you're a coward. The word hung in the air. It was a slap. It was a curse. It was the absolute, unvarnished truth. He reared back, his face twisting, as if she had physically struck him. You were a coward, she sobbed, and the tears that came now were tears of rage and a terrible, aching empathy. You were too afraid to face the oath. You were too afraid to trust the bond. You found this. She slammed the open journal against the inside of the golden, shimmering bars. You found the prophecy. You found the solution. The true union?
He stared at the page she was jabbing at, the prophecy. His eyes went wide. The realization was dawning, the one he hadn't seen. And you still chose to run, she screamed, her voice breaking. You chose to destroy me, to destroy us, rather than fight for us. You could have told me, we could have, but you chose to be a coward. Kaelen looked from the prophecy in the book to the thrumming magical chain that he could now feel pulsing between them, to her, to the woman who was not his target, not his pariah, but his partner in this curse. The rejection failed. The prophecy began. The chain of the past, reforged. I didn't, he stammered, all his alpha power, all his stoic control, all his ancient lordly authority, it all just crumbled. It sloughed off him, leaving behind the hollowed-out, terrified man from the journal. He was just a man, trapped by his own bloodline, standing in front of the only person in the world who could possibly understand. He finally broke. He slumped forward, his body giving out, his hands pressing against the magical, shimmering bars of her cage, the golden light silhouetting him, a fallen god at his own altar. He didn't deny it. He didn't fight. He pressed his forehead against the cage, the energy humming between them, a barrier, and yet the only thing holding him up. His voice was a broken, raw whisper, a confession that tore his own soul apart, the most honest words he had likely spoken in his entire hollowed-out life.
I was trying to save you." He looked up, his gray eyes now swimming with a pain she recognized as her own, looking through the bars into her. "From me." His confession hangs in the air between them. "From me." The words are a key, and in a single, shattering instant, they unlock everything. Rowena's rage, her 22 years of coiled-up, defensive, pariah-driven fury, doesn't just fade, it evaporates. It's a supernova of anger that, in the face of his utter, broken-down agony, simply collapses. It leaves behind a void, an emptiness that perfectly, terrifyingly mirrors his own. She is no longer looking at an alpha or a lord or a mate or even her executioner. She is looking at a man who has been systematically hollowing himself out one memory at a time, a man who has been living in a prison of his own bloodline, his own duty, for a lifetime she can't even imagine. He is the walking, breathing, tragic conclusion of the very journal she now clutches in her hand. Her shadows, the ones that had recoiled from him, the ones that had flared in anger at him, they change. They uncoil from inside her, no longer a lashing defense, no longer a cowering fear. They are slow, gentle, curious. They are not her magic. They are her most honest, vulnerable, and repressed self, and they see in the man slumped against the bars a kinship. They see a void. They see a darkness that is not evil, just empty. A single inky tendril of her power, thin as a spider's silk, separates from the mist around her. It moves, not with menace, but with a bone-deep, aching empathy. It drifts through the air, across the small space separating them. Kaelen sees it. He flinches, a raw, primal instinct. His power, the truth eater, bristles, sensing her magic. He tries to pull back, to re-erect that mask, to become the Alpha Lord again. But he is too broken, too tired, and her shadow, it doesn't attack. It stops, a foot from his face, hovering in the air. It's a question, a whisper. I see you. I am not afraid. His breath hitches. His tortured, winter-gray eyes stare at the tendril of forbidden magic floating inches from his face, and it is not attacking. It is waiting. Rowena's own hand rises, as if of its own accord. She lifts it to the inside of the golden, shimmering bars, her fingers spreading, her palm facing him. Her shadows in the room mirror the movement, twisting, reaching for him. You live like this," she whispers, and her voice is no longer a scream. It's a raw, broken sound, thick with tears she is no longer crying for herself. Every day, a void, just eating yourself to keep others safe. It's not a question. It is a realization, and it is the first kind, true, seeing word anyone has spoken to him in his entire hollowed-out life. He looks at her, at the genuine, agonizing empathy in her starless black eyes, and it is more painful than the rejection. It is more painful than the oath. It is the only way, he chokes out, his voice a rasp. It is the price. A scream. It's not from her. It's from him. An agonizing, physical, ripping sound is torn from his throat. He roars, a sound of pure, unadulterated torment, and slams his body hard against the bars of her cage. His hands, his silver-scarred hands, grip the magical light, and the cage flares with the blinding, hot, white light as his power collides with it. At the exact same instant, Rowena is thrown to the floor of her cell. A spike of unbearable, searing pain drives through her chest. She screams, a high, thin sound, as she collapses to her knees. The chain! The chain! The blood moon, hanging in the sky far above them, has reached its zenith. Its power is flooding the world, and the paradox, the unholy fusion of the oath and the bond, is tightening. It is no longer a pull. It is no longer a drain. It is a weapon. It is an active, malevolent force, and it is killing them. The moon? He chokes out. He is on his knees now, just outside his cage, his body spasming. It's at the peak, Rowena. The magic, it's now. It's killing us now. He was right. They didn't have 3 days. That was the oath's timeline. But the failed rejection, the chain, had created a new, accelerated deadline.
They had minutes. Rowena is on her hands and knees, gasping. The pain is a fire in her lungs. She can feel her life force, her very magic, being siphoned out of her, a cold, terrible vacuum. And through the chain, she can feel him. She can feel his energy, his life being ripped out too. They are two leaking batteries, and the chain is the wire connecting them, shorting them both out. But as the pain slams through her, it resonates. It's not just in her, it's in the room. The great, glowing tree in the center of the library, its soft, silver light, which had been so steady, explodes. It flares a blinding silver-white pulse in perfect, agonizing time with the throb of the chain. The floor beneath the tree, the vast, circular inlaid pattern on the stone floor. It's not a design, it's glowing. The pain, the tree, the glowing circle. The words from the journal slam into Rowena's mind, a lifeline in a sea of agony. The rite of eclipse. The shadow well, Kaelen gasps, his own eyes, wide with pain, fixing on the glowing tree. This tower, it's built over it. The shadow well, the veil. The journal! Rowena screams, her voice a raw, desperate thing. She crawled on her hands and knees, ignoring the pain, ignoring the fire in her chest. She snatches the book from the floor. Kaelen, the journal, the prophecy. It said, the bond is the key. You thought it was a trap. It's not a trap, Kaelen. It's instructions. She shoves the book up against the golden bars. He is staring at her, his mind, so brilliant and so broken, fogged by pain, struggling to catch up. What instructions? This place, she cries, her voice hysterical, but clear. The shadow well, it's a place where the veil is thin, a place to do something, the rite of eclipse, to merge our powers. She's breathing in great heaving gasps, the words coming out in a torrent. Your power, Kaelen, the journal is wrong. You're not a truth eater. You're an unburdener. You don't destroy magic, you cleanse it. You take the memories, the pain, the trauma, to set the magic free. He is staring at her as if she has just spoken a new language, a language of hope, a language he had forgotten existed. And my magic, she continues, her hand slamming against her own chest over the source of the pain. It's not dark. It's not forbidden. It's repressed. It's afraid. It's shadows because it's the only thing it's ever known. It's grieving. It needs cleansing. It needs unburdening. The realization hits them both at the same instant, a silent, shattering explosion of understanding that is more profound than the rejection. Avoid, Kaelen whispers, his mind, his brilliant, strategic mind, finally grasping it. And a repressed power, not a poison and a cure, but a luck,
And a key. Yes, Rowena cries, a single, joyous, terrified sob ripping from her. And the oath, the executioner's oath, it's just magic. It's old, repressed, dirty magic. It's a curse. What does your power do to dirty magic, Kaelen? His eyes, his winter gray, agonized eyes go wide. It eats it. Then eat it, Kaelen, she screams, her voice echoing in the vast, ancient chamber. Eat the oath, Kaelen. That's the true union. Not love or a mating, but our magic, our purpose. We cleanse the oath together. Another spike of pain. Kaelen roars and slumps forward. I can't. Not from out here. The cage, the light magic, it separates, it blocks. Rowena's eyes, her solid, starless black eyes, snap to the shimmering golden bars of her prison. You said you would burn my shadows to ash? She says, her voice suddenly, dangerously calm. It will, he gasps, clutching his chest. And you said you would feel it. He nods, his face slick with sweat, his eyes wide with a new terror. Rowena, what are you? No. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't give him time to argue. She doesn't give herself time to be afraid. She turns her back to him, facing the golden, humming wall of light. Then you'll know it's working. Rowena, no, wait! She plunges both her hands up to her wrists into the shimmering, golden light magic field. A scream. It is a sound that no human, no wolf, no being was ever meant to make. It is the sound of a soul being set on fire. It is not flesh burning. It is magic. It is her. Her shadows, her power, her very essence is ignited, turning to ash at the touch of the pure, cleansing light. And Kaelen roars. He is thrown back from the cage as if struck by lightning. The feedback, her pure, unadulterated, screaming agony, slams into him through the chain, 1,000 times worse than the oath, a pain that shatters his senses. But Rowena holds on. She is screaming. Her throat is tearing, but she is pushing. She is pushing her power, her shadows, her pain, her will into the cage. She is feeding the fire. The golden light of the cage flares white hot. It sputters, it vibrates, the hum rising to a deafening, shrieking whine. She gives one final, primal shove, pouring all of herself, all of her darkness, all of her hope into the bars. Crack! The light magic shatters. It explodes outward in a shockwave of golden light and black ash. The force is catastrophic. It rips the ancient books from the shelves. It extinguishes the floating runes. It throws Rowena backward into her cell and Kaelen backward into the library, his body skipping across the stone floor like a skipped stone. Silence. A deafening, absolute, ringing silence. The only light is the faint, silver-blue pulse from the tree and the red, bloody light from the moon from the arrow slits far above. The air smells of ozone and burning shadows and ancient dust. Rowena coughs. Her lungs are on fire. She is on her back, on the cold stone, shaking. Her hands, she lifts her hands. They're fine. Not a burn, not a mark. The cage had burned her power, not her flesh. She pushes herself up, her limbs trembling. He is on the floor, 10 feet away. He is not moving.
Kaelen, she whispers, her voice a raw, burned-out croak. He groans, a low, deep, pained sound. He pushes himself up onto his hands and knees, his entire body shaking. He is alive. He looks at her, across the small distance, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated awe. She had broken it. A Marr cage. A cage that had held unstable magic for 1,000 years. This
This pariah, this witch, this fated mate. She had shattered it with the sheer, unadulterated force of her will. But the chain, it is there, it is visible. A pulsing, violent, vibrating rope of black and silver, and the pain is unbearable. It is screaming. The paradox is at its absolute peak. Now! Rowena gasps, crawling out of the alcove, her body a symphony of agony. He doesn't hesitate. He scrambles to his feet, lurching, stumbling, and meets her at the center of the room. They collapse together at the base of the glowing tree. The floor is not stone. It is a vast, circular disk of what looks like obsidian, and in the center, it is not solid, it is a pool of pure, swirling liquid darkness, the shadow well. It is a physical hole in the world, a place where the veil is not just thin, it is gone. A cold, powerful, ancient energy is rising from it, a wind that isn't wind, pulling at their clothes, at their hair. It smells of dust and ozone and a deep, electric, empty void. The right! Kaelen chokes out, his hands braced on the edge of the well. He is looking into the swirling darkness, and his face is pale with a new, ancient terror. I've read of it in the other books, the ones my father locked away. He is shaking his head, his voice a torrent of panic. Rowena, we can't. It will merge us, not just our magic, our minds, our souls. He turns to her, his gray eyes wide, begging her to understand. It could destroy us. It could make me eat you. Your magic, your memories, everything. You would be blank, like the rogues in my journal, a hollowed out shell. This is it, the final, terrible, ultimate choice, to die by the paradox or to risk an annihilation of the soul. Rowena looks at him. His face is a mask of terror. He is afraid, not for himself, but for her. He is still trying to save her from himself. She looks down at the swirling, liquid nothing of the shadow well, and then she looks at him, her heart, her broken, beaten, furious heart, making its final choice. She puts her hand out, palm up, holding it just over the swirling, cold void of the well. And if we don't, she says, and her voice is not a croak, it is not a whisper, it is shaking, but it is firm. We die, in the next 10 seconds, and the oath wins. Our ancestors' sin wins. He stares at her outstretched hand. The hand of the witch, the hand of his sacrifice, the hand of his mate. If we do this, he warns, his voice a raw, broken rasp, I will see every dark part of you, every shadow, every single fear you have ever had. There will be nothing left to hide. She doesn't flinch. She just looks at him with that terrible, beautiful, all-encompassing, world-shattering empathy. And she gives him a small, broken, defiant smile. And she whispers, her voice breaking with the sheer, unbearable tragedy of it, will see every memory you've lost. I will see the void you've become. She pushes her hand, her trembling, scarred hand, closer to him. I'm not afraid of your past, Kaelen, if you're not afraid of my shadows. The words hang in the air between them. A new oath, a new bond. He looks at her hand. He looks at her face. He sees the pariah, the witch, the survivor, the woman who broke a Marr cage just to try, the woman who saw his broken, hollowed-out soul and still offered her hand. He makes his choice. His voice cracks. He makes a fist, his silver-scarred hand trembling, not from fear, but from a fury she has never seen. A fury at his ancestors, at his oath, at himself. I was born to be your executioner, Rowena. He takes a shuddering, ragged breath, and in that instant, his entire being shifts. The broken man vanishes. The hollowed-out void vanishes. The Alpha Lord returns,
But he is not the cold, stoic god from the dais. He is a volcano. He is a storm. He is a shield. He slams his hand down, palm down, over the shadow well, his fingers spread wide next to hers. He doesn't take her hand. He joins her. But by the goddess, he snarls, his voice a vow, a new oath, a new prophecy. I will die as your shield. The instant their hands are both committed, the instant their wills are aligned, the shadow well erupts. It doesn't ask, it takes. A vortex of pure, liquid darkness and ancient cold roars up from the well. It is not a wind, it is a physical force. It bypasses their skin, their flesh, their bones. It invades their souls. Rowena screams as his power, his void, slams into her. It's cold, so cold, and it's empty. A universe of lost memories, of hollowed-out duty, of loneliness. It is an agony of nothing. Kaelen roars as her power, her shadow, slams into him. It's not cold. It's boiling. It's pain. It's 22 years of humiliation, of being a pariah, of repressed, screaming, unstable, terrified magic. It is an agony of too much. Their heartbeats, their breathing, their very souls slam together and sink. The chamber is filled with the sound of two hearts beating as one, a frantic, thunderous, terrifying drumbeat. The magic is pulled from them. A torrent of inky, terrified, pure black shadow is ripped from her chest. A torrent of cold, empty, silver-white light, the light of his void, is ripped from his. The two forces, the unstable and the neutralizer, the shadow and the void, slam into each other in the air between them, in the vortex rising from the well. And they do not destroy each other. They do not mix. They remake each other. Rowena's shadows, his void hits them, and it is not eating them. It is unburdening them. It is cleansing them of their fear. And as the fear is stripped away, the shadows change. They lighten. The inky blackness shifts to a deep royal indigo, and then flecks of silver-white light, like starlight, begin to appear. Her shadows, her terrifying, forbidden shadows, are becoming a galaxy. And his scars, the silver-white lines on his hands, the marks of his lost memories, his hollowed-out self, as her magic, her life, her truth, her unbroken soul floods into him, they change. The searing, cold, silver-white light fades, and the lines, the empty scars, begin to fill in. They fill in with black, a deep, rich, solid, living black.
He is filling his void with her shadows. She is illuminating her shadows with his light. It is an agony. It is an ecstasy. It is transformation. And in the very center of the swirling, chaotic, beautiful vortex of their new, merged magic, the chain, the ugly, pulsing, parasitic chain of the oath and the failed bond, it materializes. It is there, a physical, ugly, throbbing rope of old, dirty magic. Their new power, this eclipse bond of shadow and light, surrounds it. It coils around it like a serpent, and it begins to devour it. It is a moment of pure, agonizing creation. The new, combined magic of the eclipse bond, that beautiful, terrifying vortex of indigo starlight in solid, living darkness, is coiling. It is a living, sentient serpent of their fused souls, and it has wrapped itself around the old, ugly, parasitic chain of the oath. It is devouring it. Rowena can feel it, a ripping sensation in her chest. The oath, the parasite that has been draining her, is being eaten. And as it's eaten, she's not just feeling relief, she's feeling a rush of pure, unadulterated power. The energy the oath was stealing is flooding back into her, amplified, ignited by Kaelen's void.
Kaelen is roaring. It is not a sound of pain. It is a sound of revelation. His void, his curse, the thing that has done nothing but take from him his entire life, it is finally being fed. It is not eating him. It is not eating her. It is eating the curse itself. The ancient, dirty magic of his ancestors' sin is the most satisfying, most righteous meal he has ever known. His scars, the silver-white lines on his hands, are not just darkening, they are burning with a cold, black fire, as centuries of stolen magic, his father's magic, floods back into his bloodline. They are on their knees, hands braced over the shadow well, their heads thrown back, lost in the agonizing, ecstatic fury of the transformation. They are seconds away. Seconds from freedom, seconds from becoming. Boom! The sound is a violation. It is not thunder. It is not magic. It is a physical, concussive force that shakes the very foundations of the Umbra Tower. The great, ancient stone door at the top of the spiral staircase, a door that had not been opened by force in 1,000 years, explodes inward. A shower of stone shrapnel and dust rains down into the chamber. The rite shatters. The delicate, screaming, perfect harmony of their merging souls snaps. The vortex of indigo and black light recoils, sputtering like a dying flame. The parasite, the old, ugly chain of the oath, which was seconds from being destroyed, flares back to life. It gives a vicious, triumphant throb. And the pain. Oh, the pain is back. It slams into them both, 1,000 times worse than before, a searing, fiery, punishing agony for their failure. Rowena is thrown from her knees, her back slamming into the base of the glowing tree. She screams as the feeling of being drained returns, a cold, hollow, desperate vacuum in her chest. Kaelen roars, a sound of pure, primal rage. The feeling of his memories, his self, being eaten again after just tasting freedom, it is an agony beyond words. Thud, thud, thud. Heavy, booted, armored footsteps are pounding down the spiral staircase. Not the cautious, terrified steps of the guards, not the haunted, heavy tread of Kaelen. These are the steps of zealots, confident, righteous, and furious. They're here. Rowena gasps, scrambling, trying to get to her feet. The room is spinning. The magic is spinning. Everything is chaos. Kaelen is already moving. He gets to his feet, not as an alpha, but as a wolf. A male protecting his den, protecting his mate. He places his body, his shaking, weakened body, between Rowena and the staircase. The figure that emerges from the shadows of the spiral staircase is not a stranger. It is Alpha Valerius, the man who raised Rowena, the man who had been her guardian, her jailer, her first tormentor. But this is not the bored, dismissive, cruel man she remembers. That man wore fine silks and a permanent sneer. This man is a crusader. He is encased in heavy, silver-inlaid steel armor. A massive furred cloak is thrown over his shoulders. His face, which she remembers as pale and soft, is livid with a righteous, fanatical fury. His eyes are burning. And he is not alone. Behind him, a dozen warriors pour into the chamber. Half of them, Rowena sees, are his, the Purifiers, a militant, fanatic group, their faces painted with silver anti-magic sigils. Their armor is designed to repel magic like hers. But the other half, Kaelen freezes. His breath catches. The other half are his. They are warriors of the Eclipse Pack, men who had sworn him fealty, men who he had trained with, men who he had trusted. And they are not looking at him, they are looking at Valerius. They are standing with Valerius. This is not an invasion, this is a schism. This is a civil war. Valerius's burning eyes scan the room. He sees the shattered, golden bars of the cage. He sees the glowing, pulsing shadow well. He sees Rowena, out of her cage, her eyes solid black, her shadows lashing around her. And he sees Kaelen, standing with her, protecting her. The look on Valerius's face is not greed. It is not triumph. It is a deep, profound, and horrified disgust. Abomination! His voice is a roar, a sermon of pure, fanatical hatred. It echoes in the vast, ancient library, a new and terrible violation. You have failed. And he is not talking to Rowena. He is pointing one armored gauntlet at Kaelen. The Lord has failed in his sacred duty. The Alpha of the eclipse, the keeper of the oath, has broken it. The defecting pack members, Kaelen's men, flinch. One of them, a younger warrior Kaelen had just promoted, looks at his Alpha, his face a mask of torn, agonized betrayal. My lord, the statters, his sword shaking, you are the oath. It is our one law. How could you? He did not. Valerius bellows, answering for him. He was weak. He was corrupted. He consorts with the witch.
Valerius takes a step forward, his boot heavy on the stone, his eyes never leaving Kaelen. I knew this day would come. I saw it. I warned your father, Kaelen, but he was a fool, just like you. He let this filth, this Vance abomination, live. I kept her as a ward, kept her as a secret, praying you would be strong enough to do what was necessary when the time came. His voice drops, and it's the sincere passion in it that makes Rowena's blood run cold. This isn't just a grab for land. He believes this. The Vance bloodline is a plague, Valerius snarls, his face contorting. It is a curse of chaos. It brings nothing but ruin. It is a cancer that must be cut out. And you were the surgeon. You were the scalpel. His eyes flick to Rowena, who is now standing, her shadows, her new, starlit indigo shadows, swirling around her like a living storm. And now look, Valerius screams, his voice cracking with a fear that is almost real. You've joined it. You've doomed us all. You've doomed the world, all for her. Rowena looks at the man who had tormented her for 22 years, the man who had let her starve, the man who had called her it. It wasn't just cruelty, it wasn't just greed for her ancestral lands, though she knew that was part of it. It was terror. He was so afraid of her, of what she was, that he had built his entire life around the righteousness of her destruction. And now Kaelen is weak. The rite was interrupted. The parasitic chain is screaming in his chest, draining him again. Rowena can feel it, a cold, sickening pull. They are both balanced on the knife edge of collapse. But Kaelen just stands. His back is to her. He is a shield. She is not a plague, Kaelen's voice rumbles. It is not the voice of the hollowed-out man from the journal. It is not the voice of the agonized man from the cage. It is the voice of the Alpha, and it is shaking with a rage that makes the very stones vibrate. She is my mate, he says, and the words are a vow. Valerius laughs, a short, bitter, barking sound. Then you are both an abomination, and you will be purged together. He draws his own sword. It is a massive, silver-edged greatsword, and it hums with an anti-magic of its own. The Lord has failed, Valerius bellows to the room, to the defector pack members, to the ancestors. The oath is broken, so we are the oath now. He raises his sword. Purge the coward! Kill the witch! The defecting pack members, torn by their alpha instinct but driven by Valerius's fanaticism, scream. The purifiers roar, and they charge. It is a wave of steel and silver and betrayal. Kaelen roars back. It is a sound of such pure, primal alpha command that it stops his own pack members dead in their tracks. Their bodies freeze, their muscles locking, their alpha instinct at war with their conscious, fanatical choice. They are frozen, caught in a terrible, agonizing paralysis. But the purifiers are not his. They are Valerius's, and they are immune. They do not stop. A half-dozen warriors, their faces painted, their silver-inlaid armor hissing as it repels the magic of the room, slam into them. Kaelen doesn't have a sword. He doesn't need one. A purifier lunges, his silver spear aimed at Kaelen's throat. Kaelen catches the spear mid-thrust. His silver-scarred hand, now filled with black, living shadow, closes around the silver shaft. And he pulls. He pulls the power out of the weapon. The silver screams, the enchantment's dying. The purifier's eyes go wide as Kaelen drains the magic, eats the enchantment, and feeds his own void. He shoves the now dead spear and the humanly weak warrior aside with contempt. But another is on him, and another. He is weak. He is drained. He is fighting them, but he is losing. Rowena is not a pariah. She is not a victim. She is a warrior. A purifier, seeing Kaelen occupied, turns on her. He sees her as the soft target, the witch. He raises his axe, a grin of pure, righteous hatred on his face. Die, you Vance abomination! He doesn't finish. Rowena's hand, the hand with the crescent scar, snaps out. She doesn't move. She doesn't flinch. She just looks at him. And her shadows, her beautiful new indigo starlight shadows, lance out. It is not a mist. It is not a tendril. It is a spear, a solid, tactical spear of pure, controlled shadow magic. It moves faster than a serpent, faster than thought. It does not pierce the man's armor. It slams into his chest and envelops him. The man stops. His axe freezes in the air. His eyes go wide, and his face contorts. He screams. It is a wet, gurgling, terrified sound, because Rowena is inside his head. She is not hurting him. She is showing him. She is forcing him to see his own inner darkness. She is showing him his greed, his jealousy of his neighbor, his fear of Valerius, the time he cheated his own pack brother. She is taking all his own repressed, secret, vile shadows and forcing him to look at them. He collapses, catatonic, his body convulsing, his mind shattered by his own reflection. Rowena's magic is not a weapon of death. It is a weapon of truth. Kaelen sees it. He is fighting two men, but he sees it. And in her eyes, she sees a flash of pure, savage pride. His back finds hers. It is instinct. It is fate. He slams his back into her, a solid, grounding wall of muscle and desperation. They are a single, breathing fortress of shadow and light, a whirlwind of draining and mind-breaking, standing at the very epicenter of the shadow well. The battle rages. It is a stalemate. The purifiers are terrified of her. They are useless against him. But Valerius has not moved. He has been watching, his fanatical eyes calculating. He sees Kaelen stumble. He sees Rowena's breath hitch. They are weak. The chain, the parasitic chain, it is still killing them. The fight is accelerating the drain. And the blood moon. Rowena! Kaelen gasps, his voice a strained, agonized sound. He shoves a warrior away, his arm trembling with the effort. The right! We're out of time! She feels it too. The peak is passing. The magical, astrological, perfect moment to consume the oath is fading. The vortex of the shadow well is slowing. We have to finish it, Kaelen roars, desperation making his voice crack. Now! He shoves the last warrior away and turns to her, his hand out, ready to rejoin the rite, to finish the bond, to consume the oath. "Now!" Valerius roars, his voice mocking Kaelen's. And he moves. But he doesn't move toward them. "Marcus!" he bellows. There is a different fight, a fight Rowena hadn't seen. At the top of the stairs, Kaelen's loyal beta, the massive grizzled Marcus, had arrived. He had heard the commotion and he had come running. He had been fighting down, trying to get to his alpha, fighting a wall of Valerius's reserves. He was one wolf against 5. He is overwhelmed. 2 of Valerius's purifiers, massive brutes, drag the wounded, bleeding, conscious form of Marcus into the chamber. They throw him like a sack of meat at Valerius's feet. Kaelen freezes. "No," he breathes. "Marcus!" Valerius plants one heavy, silver-inlaid boot on Marcus's chest. The wounded beta groans. Valerius smiles. It is a horrible, triumphant, sane smile. The fanaticism is gone, replaced by the cold, calculating logic of a trapper. "You are absolutely right, Lord Kaelen," Valerius says, his voice a smooth, conversational venom. "The blood moon waits for no one. The peak is now." He raises his axe. It is a massive, silver-edged battle axe, and he holds it, two-handed, high above his head. The silver edge is inches from Marcus's throat. Kaelen and Rowena are frozen. They are standing at the edge of the shadow well, their hands outstretched, seconds from finishing the rite. And Valerius has a hostage. "So, you have a choice," Valerius purrs. He looks at Kaelen the man, he looks at Rowena the witch, and he looks at the vortex of the shadow well. "Your blasphemy," he spits, the fanaticism returning. "Join your souls. Consume the oath. Finish what you started." He shifts his weight, and the axe dips, the silver edge kissing the skin of Marcus's throat. A single, thin line of blood wells up. Marcus grunts, his eyes wide with terror, but loyal to the last. "My lord, don't." "Or," Valerius continues, his voice like silk, "you can save your most loyal servant, your friend, your beta." Kaelen is torn apart. His new bond, his soul, his freedom is at the shadow well. His old bond, his brother, his pack, is at Valerius's feet. "No, no," Kaelen is whispering, his head whipping back and forth from Marcus to Rowena to the well. He is paralyzed. This is a choice he cannot make. The parasitic chain, the oath, throbs. It screams with triumphant, cold laughter. It knows it has won. The light from the arrow slits, the red light of the blood moon, is visibly fading. They have seconds. "Choose, Kaelen," Valerius roars. "Your filthy new bond, or your loyal old one. Your soul, or his." He tenses his muscles. He is going to swing. And in that moment, Kaelen is lost. He is frozen. Caught. But Rowena? Rowena is not. She is a pariah. She has never had a friend to lose. She has never had a pack to be loyal to. She is not bound by the past. She is bound by the truth. She looks at the axe. She looks at Marcus's loyal, terrified eyes. She looks at Kaelen, paralyzed by a loyalty she admires but cannot afford. And she makes the choice. It is an impossible, horrifying, no-win scenario. If they complete the bond, Marcus dies. A good, innocent, loyal wolf is butchered at their feet.
Their new freedom is bought with the blood of their friends. But if they stop, if they step away from the shadow well to save him, the rite fails. The peak passes, the oath, the parasitic chain wins. And it kills them both anyway. They all die. Marcus, Rowena, Kaelen. It is a trap, a perfect trap. And Rowena Vance, the pariah, the witch, the shadow weaver, is the only one who sees the third option.
It is a moment of pure, agonizing creation. The new combined magic of the eclipse bond, that beautiful, terrifying vortex of indigo starlight and solid living darkness, is coiling. It is a living, sentient serpent of their fused souls, and it has wrapped itself around the old, ugly, parasitic chain of the oath. It is devouring it. Rowena can feel it, a ripping sensation in her chest. The oath, the parasite that has been draining her, is being eaten. And as it's eaten, she's not just feeling relief, she's feeling a rush of pure, unadulterated power. The energy the oath was stealing is flooding back into her, amplified, ignited by Kaelen's void. Kaelen is warring. It is not a sound of pain. It is a sound of revelation. His void, his curse, the thing that has done nothing but take from him his entire life, it is finally being fed. It is not eating him, it is not eating her, it is eating the curse itself. The ancient, dirty magic of his ancestors' sin is the most satisfying, most righteous meal he has ever known. His scars, the silver-white lines on his hands, are not just darkening. They are burning with a cold, black fire as centuries of stolen magic, his father's magic, floods back into his bloodline. They are on their knees, hands braced over the shadow well, their heads thrown back, lost in the agonizing, ecstatic fury of the transformation. They are seconds away, seconds from freedom, seconds from becoming. Boom! The sound is a violation. It is not thunder, it is not magic, it is a physical, concussive force that shakes the very foundations of the Umbra Tower. The great ancient stone door at the top of the spiral staircase, a door that had not been opened by force in 1,000 years, explodes inward. A shower of stone shrapnel and dust rains down into the chamber. The rite shatters. The delicate, screaming, perfect harmony of their merging souls snaps. The vortex of indigo and black light recoils, sputtering like a dying flame. The parasite, the old, ugly chain of the oath, which was seconds from being destroyed, flares back to life. It gives a vicious, triumphant throb. And the pain? Oh, the pain is back. It slams into them both, 1,000 times worse than before, a searing, fiery, punishing agony for their failure. Rowena is thrown from her knees, her back slamming into the base of the glowing tree. She screams as the feeling of being drained returns, a cold, hollow, desperate vacuum in her chest. Kaelen roars, a sound of pure, primal rage. The feeling of his memories, his self being eaten again after just tasting freedom, it is an agony beyond words. Thud, thud, thud. Heavy, booted, armored footsteps are pounding down the spiral staircase, not the cautious, terrified steps of the guards, not the haunted, heavy tread of Kaelen. These are the steps of zealots. Confident, righteous, and furious. They're here, Rowena gasps, scrambling, trying to get to her feet. The room is spinning, the magic is spinning, everything is chaos. Kaelen is already moving. He gets to his feet, not as an alpha, but as a wolf. A male protecting his den, protecting his mate. He places his body, his shaking, weakened body, between Rowena and the staircase. The figure that emerges from the shadows of the staircase is not a stranger. It is Alpha Valerius, the man who raised Rowena, the man who had been her guardian, her jailer, her first tormentor. But this is not the bored, dismissive, cruel man she remembers. That man wore fine silks and a permanent sneer. This man is a crusader. He is encased in heavy, silver-inlaid steel armor. A massive furred cloak is thrown over his shoulders. His face, which she remembers as pale and soft, is livid with a righteous, fanatical fury. His eyes are burning. And he is not alone. Behind him, a dozen warriors pour into the chamber. Half of them, Rowena sees, are his men, the Purifiers, a militant, fanatic group, their faces painted with silver anti-magic sigils. Their armor is designed to repel magic like hers. But the other half, Kaelen freezes. His breath catches. The other half are his. They are warriors of the Eclipse Pack, men who had sworn him fealty, men he had trained with, men he had trusted. And they are not looking at him. They are looking at Valerius. They are standing with Valerius. This is not an invasion. This is a schism. This is a civil war. Valerius's burning eyes scan the room. He sees the shattered golden bars of the cage. He sees the glowing, pulsing shadow well. He sees Rowena, out of her cage, her eyes solid black, her shadows lashing around her. And he sees Kaelen, standing with her, protecting her. The look on Valerius's face is not greed, it is not triumph. It is a deep, profound, and horrified disgust. Abomination! His voice is a roar, a sermon of pure, fanatical hatred. It echoes in the vast, ancient library, a new and terrible violation. You have failed, he screams. And he is not talking to Rowena. He is pointing one armored gauntlet at Kaelen. The Lord has failed in his sacred duty. The Alpha of the Eclipse, the Keeper of the Oath, has broken it. The defecting pack members, Kaelen's men, flinch. One of them, a younger warrior Kaelen had just promoted, looks at his alpha, his face a mask of torn, agonized betrayal. My lord, the warrior stammers, his sword shaking. You are the oath. It is our one law. How could you? He did not. Valerius bellows, answering for him. He was weak. He was corrupted. He consorts with the witch. Valerius takes a step forward, his boot heavy on the stone, his eyes never leaving Kaelen. I knew this day would come. I saw it. I warned your father, Kaelen, but he was a fool, just like you. He let this filth, this Vance abomination live. I kept her as a ward, kept her as a secret, praying you would be strong enough to do what was necessary when the time came.
His voice drops, and it's the sincere passion in it that makes Rowena's blood run cold. This isn't just a grab for land. He believes this. The Vance bloodline is a plague, Valerius snarls, his face contorting. It is a curse of chaos. It brings nothing but ruin. It is a cancer that must be cut out. And you, he spits at Kaelen, you were the surgeon. You were the scalpel. His eyes flick to Rowena, who is now standing, her shadows, her new star-lit indigo shadows, swirling around her like a living storm. And now look! Valerius screams, his voice cracking with a fear that is almost real. You've joined it! You've doomed us all! You've doomed the world! All for her! Rowena looks at the man who had tormented her for 22 years, the man who had let her starve, the man who had called her it. It wasn't just cruelty. It wasn't just greed for her ancestral lands, though she knew. She knew that was part of it. It was terror. He was so afraid of her, of what she was, that he had built his entire life around the righteousness of her destruction. And now Kaelen is weak. The rite was interrupted. The parasitic chain is screaming in his chest, draining him again. Rowena can feel it, a cold, sickening pull.
They are both balanced on the knife edge of collapse. But Kaelen just stands. His back is to her. He is a shield. She is not a plague, Kaelen's voice rumbles. It is not the voice of the hollowed-out man from the journal. It is not the voice of the agonized man from the cage. It is the voice of the Alpha, and it is shaking with a rage that makes the very stones vibrate. She is my mate, he says, and the words are a vow. Valerius laughs, a short, bitter barking sound. Then you are both an abomination, and you will be purged together. He draws his own sword. It is a massive, silver-edged greatsword, and it hums with an anti-magic of its own. The Lord has failed, Valerius bellows to the room, to the defectors, to the ancestors. So we are the oath now. He raises his sword. Purge the coward. Kill the witch. The defecting pack members, torn by their alpha instinct, but driven by Valerius's fanaticism, scream. The purifiers roar, and they charge. It is a wave of steel and silver and betrayal. Kaelen roars back. It is a sound of such pure, primal alpha command that it stops his own pack members dead in their tracks. Their bodies freeze, their muscles locking, their alpha instinct at war with their conscious, fanatical choice. They are frozen, caught in a terrible, agonizing paralysis. But the purifiers are not his. They are Valerius's, and they are immune. They do not stop. A half-dozen warriors, their faces painted, their silver-inlaid armor hissing as it repels the magic of the room, slam into them. Kaelen doesn't have a sword. He doesn't need one. A purifier lunges, his silver spear aimed at Kaelen's throat. Kaelen catches the spear mid-thrust. His silver-scarred hand, now filled with black living shadow, closes around the silver shaft. And he pulls. He yanks the power out of the weapon. The silver screams, the enchantment's dying. The purifier's eyes go wide as Kaelen drains the magic, eats the enchantment, and feeds his own void. He shoves the now dead spear and the humanly weak warrior aside with contempt. But another is on him, and another. He is weak. He is drained. He is fighting them, but he is losing. Rowena is not a pariah. She is not a victim. She is a warrior. A purifier, seeing Kaelen occupied, turns on her. He sees her as the soft target, the witch. He raises his axe, a grin of pure righteous hatred on his face. Die, you Vance abomination! He doesn't finish. Rowena's hand, the hand with the crescent scar, snaps out. She doesn't move. She doesn't flinch. She just looks at him. And her shadows, her beautiful, new, indigo starlit shadows, lance out. It is not a mist. It is not a tendril. It is a spear, a solid, tactical spear of pure, controlled shadow magic. It moves faster than a serpent, faster than thought. It does not pierce the man's armor. It slams into his chest and envelops him. The man stops. His axe freezes in the air. His eyes go wide, and his face contorts. He screams. It is a wet, gurgling, terrified sound. Because Rowena is inside his head. She is not hurting him. She is showing him. She is forcing him to see his own inner darkness. She is showing him his greed, his jealousy of his neighbor, his fear of Valerius, the time he cheated his own pack brother. She is taking all his own repressed, secret, vile shadows and forcing him to look at them. He collapses, catatonic, his body convulsing, his mind shattered by his own reflection. Rowena's magic is not a weapon of death. It is a weapon of truth. Kaelen sees it. He is fighting two men, but he sees it. And in his eyes, she sees a flash of pure, savage pride. His back finds hers. It is instinct. It is fate. He slams his back into her, a solid, grounding wall of shadow and light, a whirlwind of draining and mind-breaking, standing at the very epicenter of the shadow well. The battle rages. It is a stalemate. The purifiers are terrified of her. They're useless against him. But Valerius? Valerius has not moved. He has been watching, his fanatical eyes calculating. He sees Kaelen stumble. He sees Rowena's breath hitch. They are weak. The chain. The parasitic chain is still killing them. The fight is accelerating the drain. And the blood moon. "Rowena!" Kaelen gasps, his voice a strained, agonized sound. He shoves a warrior away, his arm trembling with the effort. "The right! We're out of time!"
She feels it too. The peak is passing. The magical, astrological, perfect moment to consume the oath is fading. The vortex of the shadow well is slowing. "We have to finish it!" Kaelen roars, desperation making his voice crack. "Now!" He shoves the last warrior away and turns to her, his hand out, ready to rejoin the right, to finish the bond, to consume the oath. "Now!" Valerius roars, his voice mocking Kaelen's. And he moves. But he doesn't move toward them. "Marcus!" he bellows. There is a different fight. A fight Rowena hadn't seen. At the top of the stairs, Kaelen's loyal beta, the massive, grizzled Marcus, had arrived. He had heard the commotion and he had come running. He had been fighting down, trying to get to his alpha, fighting a wall of Valerius's reserves. He was 1 wolf against 5. He is overwhelmed. 2 of Valerius's purifiers, massive brutes, drag the wounded, bleeding, conscious form of Marcus into the chamber. They throw him, like a sack of meat, at Valerius's feet. Kaelen freezes. "No," he breathes. "Marcus!" Valerius plants 1 heavy, silver-inlaid boot on Marcus's chest. The wounded beta groans. Valerius smiles. It is a horrible, triumphant, sane smile. The fanaticism is gone, replaced by the cold, calculating logic of a trapper. "You are absolutely right, Lord Kaelen," Valerius says, his voice a smooth conversational venom. "The blood moon waits for no one. The peak is now." He raises his axe. It is a massive, silver-edged battle axe, and he holds it, 2-handed, high above his head. The silver edge is inches from Marcus's throat. Kaelen and Rowena are frozen. They are standing at the edge of the shadow well, their hands outstretched, seconds from finishing the rite, and Valerius has a hostage. "So, you have a choice," Valerius purrs. He looks at Kaelen, the man. He looks at Rowena, the witch, and he looks at the vortex of the shadow well. "Complete your blasphemy," he spits, the fanaticism returning. "Join your souls, consume the oath, finish what you started." He shifts his weight, and the axe dips, the silver edge kissing the skin of Marcus's throat. A single thin line of blood wells up. Marcus grunts, his eyes wide with terror, but loyal to the last. My lord, don't!" "Or," Valerius continues, his voice like silk, "you can save your most loyal servant, your friend, your beta." Kaelen is torn apart. His new bond, his soul, his freedom, is at the shadow well. His old bond, his brother, his pack, is at Valerius's feet. "No, no, no!" Kaelen is whispering, his head whipping back and forth. From Marcus to Rowena to the well. He is paralyzed. This is a choice he cannot make. The parasitic chain, the oath, throbs. It screams with triumphant, cold laughter. It knows it has won. The light from the arrow slits, the red light of the blood moon, is visibly fading. They have seconds.
Choose, Kaelen, Valerius roars. Your filthy new bond, or your loyal old one. Your soul, or his. He tenses his muscles. He is going to swing. And in that moment, Kaelen is lost. He is frozen, caught. But Rowena is not. She is a pariah. She has never had a friend to lose. She has never had a pack to be loyal to. She is not bound by the past. She is bound by the truth. She looks at the axe. She looks at Marcus's loyal, terrified eyes. She looks at Kaelen, paralyzed by a loyalty she admires but cannot afford. And she makes the choice. It is an impossible, horrifying no-win scenario. If they complete the bond, Marcus dies. A good, innocent, loyal wolf is butchered at their feet. Their new freedom is bought with the blood of their friends. But if they stop, if they step away from the shadow well to save him, the right fails. The peak passes. The oath, the parasitic chain, wins. And it kills them both anyway. They all die. Marcus, Rowena, Kaelen. It is a trap. A perfect trap. And Rowena Vance, the pariah, the witch, the shadow weaver, is the only one who sees the third option. She sees Kaelen's paralysis. It is not weakness. It is love. A deep, pack-driven, alpha-deep love for his beta, for his brother. It is a love she has never known, but she recognizes it. It is the very thing that makes him Kaelen, and it is the very thing Valerius is using to destroy them. He is paralyzed by loyalty, by the past. She is a creature of truth, of the present. She gets it. This is why the goddess fated her to him. He is the void, the unburdener, the shield. She is the shadow, the seer, the scalpel. Valerius tenses. The downswing is beginning. Kaelen! Rowena screams. Her voice is not a plea. It is a command. It is the voice of an alpha.
It snaps him out of his paralysis. His head whips to her. Rowena, I can't. You will, she snarls. And she acts. She does not choose, she does both. Action 1. Her left hand, her scarred hand, the hand of her Vance bloodline, slams back down onto the edge of the shadow well, right next to his. She grabs his hand, not in romance, but in a vice grip. Their flesh meets, her scar against his. Finish it, she roars at him, her voice a promise and a threat. He gasps as the vortex of the right, of their souls reignites 1,000,000 times stronger, fueled by their skin-on-skin contact. The power slams back into them, the agonizing, ecstatic merging. Action 2. At the exact same simultaneous instant, her right hand, her weapon hand, snaps out. She aims it, not at Valerius, but at everything else. I said... She breathes, her voice dropping to a whisper of pure cosmic power. Both. A wave. It is not a spear. It is not a tendril. It is a tsunami. A tidal wave of her new indigo, starlit shadow erupts from her. It is not a physical force, it is a psychic one. It moves faster than the axe. It slams into Valerius. The axe stops. It freezes in the air, a single silver inch from Marcus's throat. Valerius's eyes, his fanatical burning eyes, go wide, and then they go blank. His body is rigid, his muscles locked in a state of absolute, unbreakable paralysis. He is not in the Umber Tower anymore. He is inside his own head. And Rowena is there with him. She is showing him, not his petty sins, not his fear. She is showing him everything. His greed for the Vance lands, his true terror, not of her magic, but of the truth of Kaelen's father, who had been stronger, wiser, and better than him.
She is showing him the contempt his purifiers secretly feel for his ambition. She is unraveling his entire self-made, righteous lie. And she is not just doing it to him. The wave hits the purifiers. It hits the defecting Eclipse warriors. It hits everyone in the room who is not her or Kaelen or Marcus. They all freeze. The entire room of warriors is locked in place. Some are standing, their swords raised. Some are mid-lunge. They are a tableau of war, a museum of their own betrayal. And they are screaming. Not with their voices, but inside their minds. They are all trapped in the truth of their own inner darkness, bound by their own shame, their own fear. Rowena is on one knee. Her entire body is shaking. The strain of holding a dozen alpha-level warriors in a state of total psychic paralysis, while also completing the rite of eclipse. She turns her head, her pale slick with sweat, her solid black eyes burning with a starlit-flecked fury. She looks at Kaelen. He is staring at her. He is not looking at Valerius. He is not looking at his traitors. He is looking at her. And the awe on his face, the pure, unadulterated, worshipful awe, it is a hotter fire than the rite itself. He has just seen what he is fated to. Not a pariah, not a witch. A queen. Rowena, she gasps, the words ripping from her, her concentration fracturing. The chain, it's still here. The paradox, I can't hold both. He sees. The parasitic chain is still pulsing. She is holding the enemies, but the oath is still killing them. The vortex, it's fading, he roars, the terror back in his voice. The moon is setting. He pulls, he yanks at the oath with his void, with his power. He is trying to eat it. It's not working, he roars in frustration. It's too old, it's too strong. I'm unburdening it, but it's empty. There's no memory to cleanse. It's just hate. It's just a law. Rowena sees it. His power, his unburdening, works by cleansing trauma, by eating memories. But the oath, it's not a memory, it's a construct. It's pure, malicious intent. It's a law of magic. Then don't eat it, Rowena gasps, her mind hyper-aware in the magical vortex, seeing the third option again. She looks at him, her starlit eyes piercing him. You remake it. What he breathes, it's magic, Kaelen. It's our magic now. Our bloodlines, our sin. So change it. The truth of it hits him like a physical blow. The true creative solution. He stops pulling, he stops eating, and he pulls the oath, the raw, screaming, hateful red magic of the curse out of the past, out of their bloodlines. It materializes in the air between them, a screaming, formless, red-hot ball of pure, malevolent law. He is holding it. They are holding it in the vortex of their new eclipse bond. What do I do? He pants, the strain of holding 1,000-year-old curse visible on his face. Rowena looks at him, her executioner, her coward, her mate. Her voice is soft. You are a guardian, Kaelen. You were never an executioner. So vow. He understands. He stops fighting the past. He stops running from the present, and he creates the future. He speaks, and his voice is no longer a command. It is a creation. The Marr line will no longer execute, he vows, and he slams his power, his new solid black void, into the screaming, red-hot energy of the curse.
Rowena nods, her turn. The Vance line will no longer hide. And she slams her power, her new starlit indigo shadows, into the energy. The red light flickers. It is warring. It is dying. Kaelen looks at her. She looks at him. They are one. And their voices, one voice, an eclipse voice of shadow and void, speaks the final law. Together, we will protect. We will shield the shadow and the void. This is the Guardian's vow. The red hateful magic shatters. It implodes.
And in that instant, the parasitic chain in their chests, the agony, the draining, the pain, it vanishes. It is gone. The void is gone, the pain is gone. The vortex from the shadow well, its purpose fulfilled, dies. The light from the great tree dims to a soft silver-blue pulse. The screaming in their souls stops. The room is silent. Rowena's right hand drops. The tsunami of shadow recedes, and all at once Valerius, the purifiers, and the defecting warriors collapse. They fall to the stone floor like puppets with their strings cut. The axe clatters, skidding across the floor, stopping inches from Marcus's throat. They are not catatonic. They are out cold. Their minds broken by the truth, their bodies overwhelmed by the truth. The traitors are beaten. Rowena, she stumbles. The exhaustion, it is a physical blow. She has nothing left. She has poured out every drop of her new, untested power. She falls forward, but she doesn't hit the floor. Kaelen catches her. He is there. He is solid. He is warm, and he is whole. He holds her, his arms wrapped around her, his face buried in her hair, and his entire body is shaking. You're Faith, he whispers. The words a broken, disbelieving sound. It's gone. Kaelen? Rowena whispers, her hands weakly pushing against his chest. She looks up at him, and she gasps. He is not Kaelen. Not the one she knows. His eyes, his beautiful winter-gray eyes, they are not hollow. They are not empty. They are flooded. He's staring at his hands, the silver scars that were filled with black. He's flexing his fingers as if he's never seen them before. I remember, he whispers, his voice thick, choked. I remember her face. He sobs. A single agonizing sound ripping from his chest. My mother's face. She had green eyes. He staggers away from Rowena, his hands flying to his head. He collapses. He doesn't fall. He collapses to his knees, his body convulsing. The memories. They're all coming back. With the Guardian's vow forged, with the curse broken, the price his family paid has been refunded. 1,000 years of stolen memories, his father's memories, the memories of every Marr Alpha who had been forced to eat their own lives, it is all flooding back into him. The void is being filled in one agonizing tsunami of a moment. He's remembering the name of the Stormcaller rogue he neutralized. Elias. His name was Elias. He was just a boy. He's remembering his father's funeral, not just the sadness, the smell of the pine, the words of the eulogy, the guilt. He is drowning. He is drowning in his own new past. He is on his knees in the center of the Umber Tower, surrounded by the bodies of his enemies, and he is weeping. The great, stoic, hollow Alpha Lord is sobbing like a child. He is whole, and it is too much. Rowena? Who did this? Who saved him? Who broke him? She is standing. She is shaking. She is exhausted, but she is not a pariah. She is not a witch. She is a shadow weaver. She looks at the man on the floor, her tormentor, her executioner, her mate. She does not run. She does not mock. She does not judge. She walks. She limps, her body screaming in protest, across the stone floor. She steps over the catatonic, drooling body of Valerius. She steps past the unconscious purifiers. She kneels. She kneels in the dust and the magic and the truth right in front of him. He is lost. He is drowning. His head is in his hands, his body racked with sobs. He is a god brought to his knees by his own returned humanity. He reaches out. Her hand, her left hand, the one with the crescent scar. She doesn't touch his face. She doesn't touch his shoulder.
She places her hand, her scarred hand, over his, the one that is clutching his head, the one with the newly blacked scars. Her scar against his scars. Click. The eclipse bond, the guardian's vow, it hums. A soft, gentle, warm pulse of indigo and black light flows from her into him. He gasps. His sobs stop. He freezes. His head snaps up. He is looking at her. His eyes are raw, red-rimmed, and flooded with 1,000 lifetimes of grief and joy and agony. And he is drowning. She holds his gaze. Her own eyes, her starlit, indigo-flecked shadow eyes, they're calm. They're a deep, safe harbor. Kaelen, she whispers, and her voice, it is not her voice. It is the voice of the Shadow Weaver. It is ancient and kind and unbreakable. I see you. She means it. She had seen his void. She had seen his lies. She had seen his cowardice. And now she was seeing his truth, his memories, his soul. I see all of you. He stares at her, at this impossible woman, this pariah who had become his queen. He breathes, and for the first time in his life, the air fills him. It doesn't just pass through. A single, perfect human tear, a tear of release, rolls down his cheek. He whispers, his voice a raw, new sound, a sound he has never heard, the sound of Kaelen Marr. And he lifts his other hand, his own scarred hand, and his fingers, trembling, brush the crescent scar on her wrist. And for the first time, I finally see me. A groan. It is not from Valerius. Marcus. Their heads snap to the side. The spell is broken. Marcus, the loyal beta, is pushing himself up on his elbows. He is bleeding. He is battered. And he is staring. His eyes are wide. He has seen everything. He saw his alpha paralyzed. He saw the witch act. He saw the wave of shadow. He saw Valerius and a dozen warriors drop without being touched. He saw the light. He saw the vortex. And now he sees his alpha, his unbeatable, stoic, hollow alpha, weeping at the feet of the witch. And he sees the witch, her eyes glowing with starlight, comforting him. He looks at the other Eclipse warriors, the traitors. They are stirring. They are waking up, and they are weeping, not in pain, in shame. Their minds broken and healed by the truth Rowena had shown them. Marcus, the loyal, grizzled, old-school wolf, he understands. He drags his wounded, bleeding body across the stone floor. He crawls.
And in the center of the Umber Tower, in front of the Shadow Well, at the feet of both of them, he bows his head. It is a full, formal beta to alpha vow of fealty. My lord, he whispers, his voice thick. And then he turns his bowed head to Rowena. My lady. The traitors, the weeping warriors, they see it. Their beta, their leader, their symbol of loyalty is bowing to both. One by one, they crawl. They drag their shamed, broken bodies, and they bow. The Eclipse Pack is not broken. It is not divided. It is reforged. It is healed. It is whole. Kaelen stands, his legs shaky. He pulls Rowena up with him, his hand never leaving hers. They are one. They are Eclipse. He looks at the bowed heads of his pack, his new pack. And then he looks at Valerius, the villain. He is stirring. He is groaning. The past is done, but the future. Kaelen, Rowena whispers, her voice tight. She's feeling it. A new ripple, a new fear. Not theirs. The other packs. The solar conclave. The light alphas. They felt it, Kaelen says, his voice vibrating with the power of the Guardian's vow. They felt 1,000-year-old law of magic break. He looks at Rowena, his guardian, his mate. They will not be happy. Rowena nods. Her starlit eyes are not afraid. They are hard. They are the eyes of a queen. She squeezes his hand. We just broke the oldest, darkest law in the kingdom. No, Rowena says, and her voice is the final vow. We fixed it.
3 months. 3 months can be a moment, or it can be an eternity. For the Eclipse Pack, it was a lifetime. It was a rebirth. The Umbra Tower was no longer a prison. It was not a tomb of secrets. It was a capital. The air, once thick with the smell of old, dusty, forgotten magic, now smelled of life, of burning herbs and new parchment and hope. The ancient, glowing tree in the center of the chamber, the one that grew from the heart of the Shadow Well, was no longer just a soft silver blue. Since the night of the eclipse, it had changed. Its branches, once bare, now sprouted new, vibrant indigo leaves, and they pulsed with the same faint starlight flecks that now lived in Rowena's eyes. The tower was no longer a place of fear. It was a sanctuary. And she was no longer Rowena. She was Lady Rowena, the Shadow Weaver, the Unbroken. She sat, not in a cage, but at the base of the great, glowing tree on a cushion of dark velvet, and she was not alone. Around her, in a small circle, sat 3 others, young wolves. 2 boys, 1 girl, their ages ranging from 16 to 19. They were the unstable, the pariahs, the unseen. The ones who, just 3 months ago, would have been brought to this room to be neutralized by Kaelen's void. 1 girl, Leela, was crying silently, her hands clenched so tight her nails were drawing blood. Her curse was a volatile, uncontrolled empathy. She felt the emotions of the entire pack, and it was driving her mad. Rowena, she did not speak. She did not offer empty comfort. She reached out, not with her hand, but with her shadows. A single, beautiful, starlit indigo tendril,
A wisp of her new controlled power moved from her across the floor. It was warm. It was gentle. It did not invade the crying girl. It simply touched her. It brushed the girl's clenched fist. And in that instant, Rowena took it. The girl gasped, a shuddering intake of breath. The crushing weight of 1,000 anxieties. It lifted. Rowena, she absorbed it. She took the girl's fear. She took her pain. She took her sorrow. And she cleansed it. Her shadows, her beautiful, dark, safe shadows, consumed the fear, unburdened the girl, and turned the raw, painful emotion into pure, neutral energy. She was doing for others what Kaelen had never been able to. She was not destroying the emotion. She was composting it. She was healing it. This was her new life. Not as a warrior, not as a victim, but as a guardian. And he was not there. He was everywhere. While she was the anchor of the present, he was the atonement for the past. He was in the upper levels of the tower, the Marr levels, the ones no one, not even him, had dared enter, the ones filled with the journals of his ancestors. He was not the hollow man. He was full. He was overflowing. 1,000 years of stolen memories, his father's, his grandfather's, they were all in his head. He was not just Kaelen Marr, Alpha Lord. He was every Marr Lord. He grieved for men he had never met. He felt the shame of atrocities his ancestors had committed in the name of the oath. And he was fixing it. He was writing. His hands, his beautiful, scarred hands, the lines now a solid, living black, were never still. He was writing letters. He was finding the descendants of the rogues his family had neutralized. The Stormcaller, Elias. He had found his sister. He had sent her 3 chests of gold and a letter that finally told her what had happened to her brother. Not a monster, but a boy who was afraid. He was atoning. He was righting the wrongs. He was taking the shame of his entire bloodline and turning it into justice. The Eclipse Pack was thriving. Their alphas were whole. The Eclipse Bond, the Guardian Vow, it was no longer a screaming, violent vortex. It was a hum. A low, warm, permanent hum in their chests. A constant, low-frequency connection that tethered their souls. She always knew where he was. He always knew what she felt. She knew he was growing frustrated with the particular arrogant journal entry from the 1400s. He felt the rush of relief from the girl Leela when Rowena cleansed her. They were 2. And they were 1. The clack of a boot on the spiral staircase broke the sacred silence. Rowena looked up. The 3 young wolves flared with panic, their unstable magic spiking. "It's all right," Rowena said, her voice a soft, low rumble. The sound of her voice, just her voice, calmed them. "It is one of ours." It was the beta, Marcus. He was no longer the grizzled, suspicious warrior. His wound had healed, but his soul had been remade. He was Kaelen's fist. He was Rowena's shield. And he hated what he was holding. "My lord," he said, his voice a low growl, bowing to Kaelen, who he knew was listening from 3 floors up. "My lady," he said, bowing deeper to Rowena, "it has come." In his hand he held a scroll. It was not a normal scroll. It was sun-bleached, a pale, sickly yellow, and it was sealed not with their eclipse black wax, but with a golden, shimmering wax,
in the shape of a sun. The solar conclave. The good alphas. The light packs. The old guard. The moment Marcus brought it into the room, the indigo leaves of the great tree recoiled. The starlight flecks dimmed. The air in the room grew cold.
The scroll itself, the holy magic of the conclave, was a poison in the Umber Tower. Rowena stood. The three young wolves scrambled back, their fear of physical taste in the air. "It is all right," she said again, but she was lying. She knew. She had felt this coming, a disturbance in the world's magic. Kaelen's footsteps were already on the stairs. He was not running. He was descending, a storm on the horizon. He emerged into the chamber, not the broken man she had saved, but the Alpha Lord she had forged. He was whole. His power was a gravity in the room. He was dressed in black, his only adornment the Marr Alpha ring, which he now remembered had been his mother's. He looked at the scroll in Marcus's hand, and his only reaction was a faint, dangerous narrowing of his winter-gray eyes. He did not take the scroll. He gestured. Marcus unrolled it, his hand shaking with a rage that mirrored his Alpha's. The words on the scroll, they hissed, they steamed in the indigo-lit room. They were burning with light magic. Marcus read. His voice was a snarl. "By the decree of the solar conclave," he spat the name, "the abomination known as the Vance line is hereby summoned to the Citadel of Light." Rowena froze. Summoned, like a dog. It is to present herself for assessment, to prove she is not a threat to the stability of the magical world. Kaelen laughed. It was not a laugh of humor. It was a terrifying sound. It was the sound of a mountain cracking. It was cold and ancient and full of memory. "Go on, Marcus," he purred. Marcus took a deep breath, his hatred rolling off him in waves. "The conclave has graciously accepted the testimony of a survivor of the Umbra Tower incident." Rowena knew. Her stomach dropped to the floor. "A brave, loyal Alpha who escaped the purge." Escaped? Rowena thought, her mind reeling. He didn't escape. We let him. We have Alpha Valerius in our protective custody. A lie. A lie so profound, so politically vicious, that it took Rowena's breath away. They hadn't found him. They had been working with him. They had rescued him. My tormentor. My accuser. He was not their prisoner. He was their star witness. Marcus crushed the scroll. The light magic exploded, searing his hand. He roared in pain, but he didn't let go. Kaelen was still. He was perfectly still. He was a statue of pure, primal fury. Rowena walked. She walked past Marcus. She walked past Kaelen. She walked to the staircase. She needed air. He followed her. He didn't touch her. He just moved with her. Their bond was a shield, and they were both inside it. They climbed, up, past the Hall of Rejection, past the Alpha Quarters, up to the very highest point of the Umber Tower, a balcony that had been locked for 1,000 years, a place no one had been. It was their place now. She burst out onto the balcony into the cold, clean night air. The moon was a sliver of silver, a new moon, a new beginning. The city of the Eclipse Pack lay below them, the lights safe, warm. She gripped the stone balustrade, her knuckles white. He won, she whispered, the words stolen by the wind. That bastard. He lost the battle, but he's winning the war. The solar conclave, the light